Chapter 1153. At this point, Lu De glanced at Yuan Chongqing, who was hiding in the distance to avoid suspicion, and said, "Just yesterday, we met the escort team of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. Since we were going back to Pingyang City, we left together." Ha ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and laughed. "Great, so that's how it is. Thank you for your hard work, senior brothers. However, since we met here, then, you two senior brothers can also report to your big gang leader. There's no need for me to go down and intercede for you." Little brother, you mean Kunanli didn't quite understand. However, Lu De had long seen the 3 carriages in the distance, as well as the escorts of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. He said happily, "Could it be that the people in the carriages behind are the people we are going to pick up?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded. "That's right. Escort these 3 carriages back to the Huanxi Mountain Villa. It'll be a great merit." Lu De and Kunanli were overjoyed. They cupped their hands and said, "Thank you, little brother." "No, it's all my fault for troubling the 2 of you. I still feel bad about it. How can I accept your thanks?" Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly waved her hands. Although Chu Zhigao knew that the Lotus Flower Escort Agency belonged to the Misty School, he still felt uneasy in his heart. It was only when he saw Zhang Xiaohua in the carriage that he felt relieved. Once he reached the front of the carriage, he jumped down and called out, "Immortal!" But just as he called out a word, Zhang Xiaohua cut him off. "Brother Chu, come. These 2 were sent by my second brother to pick you and Jing up. It's just that. I thought that you were at Dragon Mountain that day. They searched for you in Dragon Mountain for many days, but they couldn't find you. They even searched the surrounding towns. Chu is untalented. I've troubled the 2 heroes." Chu Zhigao stepped forward and bowed. We don't dare. Lu De and Kunanli also returned the greeting. Behind Chu Zhigao, Li Jinfeng also jumped down from the carriage. Yuan Chongqing had actually seen Li Jinfeng several times. The 2 of them greeted each other in astonishment, and were quite familiar with each other. The 2 coachmen's eyes were even more fervent, as they looked at Zhang Xiaohua with extreme devotion, as if Zhang Xiaohua was really a deity. Encountering the people from the Lotus Flower Escort Agency, the 2 coachmen naturally wouldn't use them anymore. Zhang Xiaohua let Chu Zhigao use double the salary and double the price to buy that lousy carriage, and sent the 2 of them back to Poyang Town. Seeing the 2 of them whispering excitedly to each other and looking back at her, Zhang Xiaohua almost wanted to go over and admonish them. The convoy of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency reorganized and placed Chu Zhigao's 3 carriages in the middle, with Lu De, Kunanli and the other escorts guarding them. The entire convoy began to move forward. Zhang Xiaohua walked in front of Yuan Chongqing, cupped her hands and said, "Brother Yuan, I still have some matters to attend to and need to take a step forward. I'll leave these 3 carriages and 4 people to Brother Yuan." There's still a long way to go from here to Pingyang City. Although little brother's martial arts are strong, there's still some risk in traveling alone. Why not follow the escort team? I still want to rely on little brother's martial arts to return to Pingyang City safely, Yuan Chongqing said with concern. Hee, it's not like I haven't walked this path before. As long as there are rules to follow, nothing will happen to the convoy of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. Besides, there's still senior brother Lu and senior brother Ke. Nothing will happen. As for me, I have some urgent matters to attend to and can't stay for long. I hope you can forgive me. Then little brother, be careful on the road, Yuan Chongqing exhorted. Zhang Xiaohua returned to the carriage and said a few words to Li Jinfeng and Chu Zhigao. She passed a few jade talismans to Li Jinfeng and whispered, "If there's an extremely dangerous matter, crush this green jade piece, and it can save your life. Also, if you crush that white jade piece, I'll know and I'll rush over as soon as possible." When Li Jinfeng heard this, he carefully hid the few jade talismans and said, "Xiaohua, if you have something to do, leave quickly. I'm just a weak scholar. I'm afraid that even bandits won't be interested in me." You have to be careful. Otherwise, Sister Qiutong won't have anyone to rely on for the rest of her life. Xiaohua. Li Jinfeng's face was a little red. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and used the ethereal steps to leave. When she couldn't see any trace of them, she made a hand gesture to conceal herself and soared into the sky. The entire pugilistic world's attention was focused on Mount Yao. At this moment, it was different from what Zhang Xiaohua saw previously. Setting aside the fact that the climate within a radius of a dozen miles around Yao Mountain was obviously different from the surrounding areas, the trees on Yao Mountain were still as green as ever even though it was already autumn. It was no different from spring or summer, and some of the ordinary grasses were even more vigorous than usual, and the flowers were even more dazzling. Not to mention that the disciples of the Xiangxiang cult, Dalan Temple, between the clouds and the water, and the righteous Dao Alliance were even more strict. Just the number of disciples in the encampment of the four sects indicated that the sect leaders of the four sects had already arrived. Let's talk about the scheming people on Mount Yao. When Zhang Xiaohua came to take a look that day, the various sects had set up defenses around Mount Yao to prevent other sects' disciples from going up the mountain. But at that time, only the sect leader of Between the Clouds and the Water, Bai Yanqiu, was present. The other sect's strength was reduced by a lot, but there were still many people who relied on their superior lightness skills to sneak in from different places. Looking at the current situation, although it could not be said that every inch of the mountain was carefully searched, there were at least a few thousand people spread out over the several dozen li of Mount Yao, each of them searching on their own. Some of them were like bullets, running here and there to look. Some of them were holding shovels and hoes in their hands, digging here and there. There were also some who were even more mysterious, holding all kinds of discs, pointers, boxes, and other strange things in their hands. They looked at the things in their hands while walking up the mountain along different routes. In short, there were many more. However, although there were thousands of people scattered on Mount Yao, there were no bubbles. They were all covered by the trees of the mountain. But these people's actions caused the people outside the mountain to be dissatisfied. Taking advantage of the night, there were many people sneaking into Mount Yao every day. Although the disciples of the four sects tried to stop them, with so many people rushing in, there were always people who slipped through the net. Everyone on Mount Yao, as well as at the foot of the mountain, looked up to see what was happening. Bang! Another muffled sound rang out, and a wave of air descended from the sky like a hurricane. The trees and rocks were blown away, and the people on Mount Yao staggered and almost fell to the ground. After the wave of air passed, the strange sound also stopped, and the place returned to its previous tranquility. The people on Mount Yao seemed to be moved. Without prior agreement, they rushed in all directions, heading in the direction of their thoughts. At the foot of the mountain, several small sects leaders and disciples broke through the blockade of the four sects and went up Mount Yao. South of Mount Yao, in the encampment between the clouds and the water, Bai Yanqiu and the three perfected masters flew out of their tents as soon as the buzzing sound came. They looked at the mountain in front of them expressionlessly, not too surprised. But when the wave of air came out again, the wind blew in front of their eyes. The four of them were stunned. Then they said in unison, "Yuan Qi of heaven and earth?" Immediately, the four of them ignored the others and sat down on the ground, silently operating the Heart Sutra in their hearts. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Bai Yanqiu was the first to open her eyes. She looked at the three teachers who still had their eyes closed to guide their qi. Then, she turned around and looked at the crowd on Mount Yao. A look of annoyance appeared on his face. After the time it takes to eat a meal, the three perfected masters between the clouds and the water opened their eyes. Perfected Master Hao Yin said with a smile, This immortal mansion is really amazing. It hasn't even been born yet, but the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth it spews out is already so dense. It's not much inferior to the immortal mansion recorded in the sect's ancient records. If we can cultivate in this immortal mansion, our cultivation can be expected. Senior brother is right. Not to mention the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth it spews out today, the amount of Yuan Qi of heaven and earth overflowing from Mount Yao is far more than what we have seen in our lives. The prosperity of the immortal mansion. Perhaps it will be because of this immortal mansion. Since the three perfected masters have said so, then this disciple, all the previous arrangements, the three perfected masters, haha, by Zhangmen, you don't have to say anymore. Previously, it's not that we didn't want the sect leader to covet the immortal mansion, but the sect leader has other actions. However, Bai Zhangmen is the sect leader between the clouds and the water. Everything in the sect is decided by the sect leader. Our opinions are only for reference. When the sect leader abandoned the Shundao sect and changed it to between the clouds and the water, we were just talking about it. Thank you for your tolerance. Bai Yanqiu smiled like a flower and said, however, I would like to ask the 3 perfected masters to enlighten me. This immortal mansion, when will it be born? Perfected Master Hao Yin smiled bitterly. Even Master Huan doesn't know the time, how can we know? Alas, in fact, what the immortal mansion looks like is not recorded in the sect's ancient records. We also don't know what it looks like. Is it similar to the Shundao sect? Senior brother, you're wrong. How can it be the same? If it's the same, why would we come here? I'm just talking about the scale. Look at Yao Mountain, it's only a few dozen miles. Even if it's all occupied hearing this, Bai Yanqiu was shocked. He looked at the whole Yao Mountain and whispered, 3 perfected masters. I'm afraid the whole Yao Mountain is that immortal mansion. Oh, that's right. We're only thinking about the immortal mansion, but we've never thought about how it will be born. Will it fall from the sky? Or will it come out from underground? If the whole Yao Mountain is the immortal mansion, it's understandable. When the time comes, as long as there's a door, it'll be enough. This is bad. This group of disciples from various sects are going back and forth on Yao Mountain. If they really find the door, it'll be terrible. Bai Zhangmen, didn't you also? Yes, perfected Master Hao Yu, I did send people, but the number was limited. Moreover, I mainly wanted to hide it from the incense cult and the Dalan temple. When the immortal mansion is born, we'll have the upper hand. But now, because of this group of people, how can we have the upper hand? If that's the case, then it's time to clean up. Perfected Master Hao Feng looked at the disciples from various sects running around like flies and said coldly, please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please collect, please tip. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote. Chapter 1154. West of Yao Mountain, in the Righteous Alliance's camp, in a rather large pavilion, a dozen people stood respectfully, facing the direction of Yao Mountain. Alliance Master Zhang San's face was gloomy as he sat on a gold-threaded Phoebe Jinnanwood chair, coldly looking at the people in front of him who had their heads bowed, and did not dare to speak. Alliance Master Zhang San's face had been gloomy for several days. Ever since he came to Yao Mountain from the Righteous Path Peak, and received some news about the Misty School, he had been gloomy since then. Everyone knew that the Alliance Master had not spoken for several days, and was really angry. No one dared to step forward, afraid that, if they said something wrong, he would punish them. Picking up a teacup inlaid with golden threads, Alliance Master Zhang San drank a mouthful. Before it even entered his throat, he spat it out with a pu sound. Then, with a swing of his hand, the teacup was smashed to the ground, shattering into pieces. Humph, what kind of tea is this? Is it for humans to drink? Alliance Master Zhang San said angrily. Yes, Alliance Master. This subordinate will immediately order my subordinates to find a good mountain spring. Vice Alliance Master Chai knew that Alliance Master Zhang San had spoken, so he could only bite the bullet and go forward. Humph, mountain spring water is easy to find, but the thousands of elite disciples of my Righteous Alliance are not easy to find. Vice Alliance Master Chai, can you tell me, how long will it take for my Righteous Alliance to nurture thousands of elite disciples? Alliance Master Zhang San berated. Also you all. Can anyone tell me that so-called immortal Dao expert? Is he from the incense cult? He only killed my Righteous Alliance's disciples? Did he not care about the Misty School's disciples? Alliance Master Zhang San was flustered and exasperated. He jumped up. Also my Righteous Alliance's Azure Flame token. Even our headquarters were taken by someone. I actually do not know who that person is. Also, where is the money I asked for? You all should give it to me. It will be winter soon, next year. My Righteous Alliance will make a big move. Without money, how do you expect me to send out the disciples? The crowd was in an uproar, and they all shrunk their necks and lowered their heads. This Alliance Master, don't be anxious. Although thousands of disciples are trapped in Ethereal Peak, They are still disciples of the righteous Tao Alliance and their martial arts have not been crippled. Even if they are imprisoned, once we find the Dharma treasure of the immortal Tao and pass by Ethereal Peak, we can either destroy the Misty School or force them to hand over my thousands of disciples. Wouldn't that be the end of it? Vice Alliance Master Chai did not want to speak, but if he didn't, who would? You have the nerve to say such words. When has my righteous Tao Alliance ever suffered such a huge loss? Where am I supposed to put my face? Even if we destroy the entire Misty School, it will still be difficult to wash away this shame. That's right. If Alliance Leader Zhang is willing, our righteous Tao Alliance will destroy the Misty School after we pass. Our elite disciples are already lying in ambush halfway. Vice Alliance Leader Chai agreed with Alliance Leader Zhang San. That's how it should be. Alliance Leader Zhang San laughed sinisterly. Didn't that old beggar Jingyi not care about the Misty School? I'll let the whole pugilistic world see that our righteous Tao Alliance is not inferior to the immortal Tao Alliance. Vice Alliance Leader Mi, who looked a little dispirited, suddenly became spirited and said, "That's exactly what we need to wash Ethereal Peak with blood. Only then can we save the face of our righteous Tao Alliance." Alliance Leader, do you still need to say this? Although we don't have any evidence, that immortal Tao expert must be a consecrator of the incense cult. We'll only use ordinary disciples to kill them this time. I'd like to see how that immortal Tao expert will deal with them. But what about the monks of the Dalan Temple? Vice Alliance Leader Yan, who looked a little hesitant, asked tentatively. Those bald donkeys are the most merciful. They've seen through our plans a few times, but they've been putting on a false front, killing and arson. Our righteous Tao Alliance's disciples were captured by the enemy, and we sent our disciples to rescue them. This reason makes sense to the whole pugilistic world. No matter how powerful the Dalan Temple is, it's still the Dalan Temple of the pugilistic world. They broke the rules for no reason. Alliance Leader Zhang San sneered. Then he looked at Yao Shan and laughed for no reason. I didn't expect this Zhang Xiaohu, who I've never heard of before, to have such skills. Vice Alliance Leader Chai, you've made a mistake. Shui Yupeng, a hero of her generation, actually died in the hands of a nobody. Dying a heroic death? Bullshit. Didn't he just discover the relationship between Shui Yupeng and the righteous Tao Alliance? But even if Shui Yupeng is still alive, there are 4 Vice Alliance leaders in the entire Misty School. There are 5 new halls, and Zhang Xiaohu has arranged for each hall leader. Even if Shui Yupeng is a Vice Alliance leader, he won't be able to do anything. If he doesn't contact the righteous Tao Alliance's disciples, what else can he do? Huyuni, why did you come back? You might as well build your own Misty School outside. I'm sorry for my incompetence. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Vice Alliance Leader Chai bowed and said, this subordinate originally thought that this Zhang Xiaohu was a puppet of the fragrance cult. Our righteous Tao Alliance controlled Shui Yupeng to give her a taste of her own medicine, making the fragrance cult unable to speak of their suffering. I didn't expect Zhang Xiaohu to be so clever. Maybe, the incense cult is clever. Alliance Leader Zhang San sneered and waved his hand. The Misty School is just a chicken rib. If the Alliance is happy, we can destroy it with a wave of our hand. Let's take a look at this treasure first. Vice Alliance Leader Yan, did the righteous Tao Alliance's disciples on Yao Mountain find anything? Vice Alliance Leader Yan shook his head. Alliance Leader, there's nothing. We've searched for so long, but there's nothing. What about the disciples of the incense cult, the Dalan Temple, and between the clouds and the water? This Vice Alliance Leader Yan's expression was strange. They didn't even send any disciples up the mountain. What? Did they finish their investigation long ago? Alliance Leader Zhang San was surprised. We came late and only occupied the west side. Did they already send their disciples up? Alliance Leader, according to what I know, between the clouds and the water was the first to arrive, followed by the Dalan Temple, and then the incense cult. They only sent their disciples to guard the mountain path, and didn't let any disciples from other sects go up the mountain. They didn't even send a single disciple. Vice Alliance Leader Yan honestly reported what he knew. This is interesting. Alliance Leader Zhang San said, pass down the order. Tell the disciples to be careful and not miss anything important. Yes, I understand. As he spoke, a buzzing sound came from Yao Mountain, and another burst of yuan qi came out. The wind blew Zhongsan's white hair up. What is this? Vice Alliance leader Yan, send more people up there to take a look. Alliance leader Zhang San was very surprised by the sudden appearance of the hurricane, and immediately ordered. On the east side of Yaoshan, the incense cult's leader, Nun Jingyi, sat upright in a wooden hut that could not be considered beautiful. On her left sat Nun Xuezhen and other inner disciples, while on her right sat several white-haired old priests. Xu Qing and Xu Jie, the two Taishang elders, were not among them. Jingyi's face was full of joy. Looking at Yao Mountain outside the house, she smiled. Yao Mountain's grand event is even more attractive than my incense cult's martial arts convention. The appearance of the immortal mansion is really something to look forward to. Leader, Between the Clouds and the Water actually arrived much earlier than my incense cult. I'm afraid they already have news of the immortal mansion? Between the Clouds and the Water received the inheritance of the Shundao sect. The Shundao sect and my incense cult are both inheritances of the ancient path of immortality. No one can guarantee that they don't have records of the immortal mansion. As for the Shundao sect, Between the Clouds and the Water was destroyed by us once. I'm sure they want the immortal mansion more than my incense cult. Leader, you're right. Anyone can get the immortal mansion, but not Between the Clouds and the Water. If that bastard Bai Yanqiu gets it, I'm afraid he'll stir up another bloody storm in the Jianghu? Nun Xuezhen nodded. The appearance of incense cult brings chaos to the Jianghu. Our incense cult has just re-entered the Jianghu, and we've already encountered the immortal mansion. How can there be such a strange thing in this world? If there's no connection, how can we believe it? Jingyi smiled. If the sect protecting formation hadn't been activated, we wouldn't have been able to come out. Even if a few people could come to Yao Mountain, they wouldn't be of much use. What does this mean? It means that the Yao Mountain Immortal Mansion is fated to be with our incense cult? Maybe it's because the seniors of our incense cult saw through the implications and left such a prophecy. Peacock smiled. So our incense cult is in the bag this time? Chen Chen also smiled in surprise. Of course not. You can't say that. Any accident can happen. We have to be prepared to deal with anything, Jingyi said with a smile. Just like the Misty School, we only use Zhang Xiaohu as a chess piece, but this chess piece played such a big role. Not only did he reorganize the entire ethereal heights like an iron bucket, but he also subdued the group of people brought back by Hu Yuni. This is really beyond our expectations. Reporting to Sir Leader, although we didn't let Zhang Xiaohu's Misty School come, but he can't not report the matter of the Misty School to Sir Leader. Besides, even if Zhang Xiaohu didn't say anything, Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng would have said it. This ethereal heights is like an iron bucket. We don't know what's going on inside. It can't be. There's something unusual. Master Xuezhen frowned. Well, our sect. Didn't we already do something to Zhang Xiaohu? I think he wouldn't dare to have any second thoughts. Master Jingyi smiled, but then she frowned and realized something. Junior sister Xuezhen, you're right. It seems, after Hu Yuni sent that disciple named Chu Yunfei to the ethereal heights, there hasn't been any news from the Misty School. Now that Hu Yuni has also entered the ethereal heights, Xue Yupeng and Zhang Qingyue's direct disciple are there, it's bound to be lively. Although we can't see it, we should at least listen to it. Haha, I know that Sir Leader has been worried about the Immortal Mansion and doesn't care about the Misty School, so I've already sent people to the ethereal heights to inquire about it. I think there will be news soon. Junior sister Xuezhen, you know me too well. Master Jingyi smiled. At this time, the same buzzing sound and the explosion of the qi of heaven and earth made Master Jingyi and Xu Qing, who was hiding behind the wooden hut, fly out. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark and tip. The Cultivator's Eternal Legend. Chapter 1155. Heaven and Earth Yuan Qi? Nun Jingyi, Xu Qing, and Xu Jie's expressions changed to that of pleasant surprise. The three of them flew in the air without moving. Their eyes were slightly closed, and they were actually absorbing yuan qi into their bodies in mid-air. Below them, a nervous outer disciple of the Misty School walked to a spot not far away. Not daring to move, he extended his arm and gestured to an inner disciple standing next to the wooden house. The inner disciple looked at Nun Jingyi and the others floating in the air, then tiptoed to the outer disciple. The outer disciple bowed, and the inner disciple nodded slightly. Then the outer disciple said something. However, the inner disciple's expression became more and more serious as the outer disciple reported. When the outer disciple finished, he bowed and left. The inner disciple was still frowning. Not daring to delay, he quietly walked to the front of the wooden house and looked at Nun Shuizhen, who was standing there looking up at the three people floating in the air. He opened his mouth to say something, but he didn't dare to make a sound. He only pulled on Nun Shuizhen's sleeve and pointed to the side, indicating for her to go over. Nun Shuizhen was envious of Nun Jingyi's immortal cultivation. Being pulled by the inner disciple made her unhappy, and her dissatisfaction was written all over her face. When they were about 10 feet away from the wooden house, Nun Shuizhen looked back and scolded in a low voice. "What's the matter? Can't you report later? Why now?" The inner disciple smiled bitterly. It's not that this disciple doesn't want to, but this news is too important. This disciple can't afford any delays. Nun Shuizhen was surprised. "Tell me about it." When the inner disciple finished speaking, Nun Shuizhen's expression changed drastically. Are you telling the truth?" The inner disciple shook his head. Reporting to Nun, this is what the outer disciple reported. This disciple didn't see it personally, but from what the outer disciple said, it's most likely true. How can this be? Nun Shuizhen shook her head repeatedly. "Send another disciple to investigate. We must get to the bottom of this." "Yes, disciple will head over now." Once the disciple was far away, Nun Shuizhen looked at Nun Jingyi, who was still floating in the air. She let out a long sigh and muttered, "When the fragrance spreads, the Jianghu will be in chaos by the time Nun Zhenshui returned to the wooden hut. The eruption of the qi of heaven and earth was over. The qi of heaven and earth was still dense at the foot of Yao Mountain. However, it was not much different from before the collapse of the incense cult's protective array. Shuqing stopped her cultivation and landed on the ground. She said, "Sect Master, this immortal mansion must be ours. If the incense cult obtains this immortal mansion, our immortal Tao will be within reach. The incense cult will definitely suppress the Tenrya sect." Then, the two of them flew to the back of the wooden house and meditated. Nun Jingyi landed on the hill with a look of pleasant surprise on her face. She waved her hand, indicating for everyone to follow her back to the wooden house. "Everyone, have you seen it?" Nun Jingyi smiled. "That hurricane just now brought with it a fresh and lively aura. That's the qi of heaven and earth, which is what the immortal Tao relies on. The immortal mansion hasn't even appeared yet, but there's already so much qi of heaven and earth erupting. Who knows what kind of immortal pills and elixirs are inside? Perhaps there's a pill that can pull everyone into the immortal Tao." Junior Sister Shuizhen, "Yes, Sect Master." Nun Shuizhen replied. "Did Yao Mountain's arrangement leave anything out? Regardless of the price, the incense cult must obtain this immortal mansion." "Sect Master, Sect Master, Sect Master, Sect Master, Sect Master, Sect Master has made all the necessary arrangements." But Nun Jingyi frowned and said unhappily, "Is there anything else that's inappropriate? Let's hear it." "No, Sect Master, Sect Master, Sect Master. I just received a message from an outer disciple that Misty School has undergone a great change." "What? Great change?" Nun Jingyi was also stunned. Could it be that the Righteous Alliance has launched a surprise attack on the Misty School? It seems Zhang San is still on the west side of Yao Mountain, and he's not worried about Yao Mountain at the moment. Why would he go find trouble with the Misty School? Isn't that picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons? Nun Jingyi said so much in one breath that Nun Shuizhen could not interrupt for a while. After Nun Jingyi finished speaking, Nun Shuizhen sighed and said, "If the Righteous Alliance launches a surprise attack on the Misty School now, that would be good. I'm afraid that the Righteous Alliance will also suffer a great loss. The Righteous Alliance may have no chance of obtaining the immortal mansion of Yao Mountain." Ah? Chen exclaimed. When did the Misty School become so powerful? Nun Shuizhen glanced at the future master of Ruijin Hall and said, according to the outer disciple, the leader of the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohu, is now an immortal Dao cultivator. Impossible. Without waiting for Chen to speak, Nun Jingyi refuted. Zhang Xiaohu hasn't even mastered the martial arts of the Misty School. My fragrance sex Yuhuan Sutra has only been practiced for a few days. Not to mention 3 Yuhuan pills. Even 300 Yuhuan pills won't let him set foot on the immortal Dao. Whether it's the immortal Dao or not, I don't know. That outer disciple doesn't know either. He just captured a disciple of the Misty School and used some means to interrogate her. I knew it. Zhang Xiaohu can't set foot on the immortal Dao. This is just a cover released by the Misty School. Presumably, that Misty School disciple was deliberately captured by us outer disciples? That's right, Master Shuizhen. You believe the outer disciples too much. If it's so easy to set foot on the immortal Dao, my fragrance sect, why would I worry about passing down the legacy? Why would I waste my time coming to Yao Mountain? Chen laughed. When Peacock heard this, she frowned slightly. No one knew what she was thinking. When Yuyan saw that her master's expression was not good, she thought for a moment and said, reporting to Sir Leader, it can't be so absolute. When the Misty sect attacked the Misty Peak, there were people from the immortal Dao helping them. Others thought that it was my fragrant religion who helped, but we knew that the people from the immortal Dao had nothing to do with the fragrant religion. But if we think about it this way, what if we think further? Then, is the immortal Dao related to the Misty School? If it's really related to the Misty School like what Sir Leader said, give them some elixir or something. Who knows, maybe they can pull Zhang Xiaohu into the immortal Dao. Sister Yuyan, what you said is a novel idea. If it was in ancient times, it might be the same. But now that the immortal Dao has existed for tens of thousands of years, where is the elixir that you mentioned? Even if there is, it's probably in the immortal mansion of Yao Mountain, and won't appear in the world. Relying on an immortal Dao expert to step into the immortal Dao is really inconceivable. If it's possible, why do you and I have to think so hard in the Heritage Palace? Why don't we just ask the Grand Elder to give us a hand, and we'll have everything? Chen retorted. Sister, I'm just giving Sir Leader an idea. Yuyan blushed a little. What Yuyan said makes sense, but it's almost impossible. Nun Jingyi sighed and said, even if there is an elixir, there needs to be a corresponding heart sutra. Zhang Xiaohu also needs to have a certain level of immortal Dao cultivation. If he takes it rashly, his meridians will explode and he'll die. It could only be that the expert had an extremely high cultivation of the immortal Dao, and had come to help Zhang Xiaohu. And the immortal Dao expert. In this immortal Dao, they all preserve their cultivation and treasure the true qi in their meridians, never interfering with worldly affairs. For example, most people don't know that we have 2 Grand Elders. If it weren't for the immortal mansion, we wouldn't have disturbed them. So, the immortal Dao expert shouldn't waste his true qi for Zhang Xiaohu. Besides, if the immortal Dao expert is really related to the Misty School, he should have appeared a few years ago when the Misty School was destroyed, and not just now. Sir Leader, I'm a little curious. Peacock said, before. I've never seen any immortal Dao expert in the Jianghu, and in the past few years, immortal Dao experts have appeared frequently. Just from what we know, there's someone who looks very similar to Senior Huan in Huanshu, the person who killed the Longting Villa in Rejuvenation Valley, and the person who killed Ban Fugui in Misty Peak. The former aside, only junior sister Xiaqing has seen his face. The latter 2 are seen by dozens and thousands of people. They look similar, which means there's at least 1 and at most 3 immortal Dao experts. Where did they come from? Sigh this. Who would know? Nun Jingyi shook her head. Actually, Peacock isn't right. Although you've never heard of immortal Dao experts in the Jianghu, it doesn't mean there aren't any. Take the Dalan Temple for example. The previous abbot, Master Yuantian, was also an immortal Dao expert just like the current Master Changsheng. Although he was a little different from the previous Sakra, he was still considered one of the top experts in the Jianghu. Even so, He was seriously injured by a masked immortal Dao expert, and died from his injuries. There's such a thing? Peacock was shocked. Yes, so not knowing doesn't mean they don't exist. Almost everyone in the Jianghu doesn't know about the two immortal Dao experts, and we've never mentioned them. But that doesn't mean the two immortal Dao experts. Then, Sir Leader, what do you mean? Nun Shuozhen asked. Let's investigate further. It's best if Ming Qing and Gao Kunhing come here, so we can ask them properly. If it's really as the outer sect disciple said, then the Misty School is really giving us a headache. Nun Jingyi said thoughtfully. Leader, that disciple also said that Ming Qing and Gao Kunhing of the Incense sect, as well as Wang Luan and Lu Bin of the Righteous Alliance, seem to have been subdued by Zhang Xiaohu. They listened to Zhang Xiaohu's every word and never refute. How did it end up like this? Nun Jingyi was extremely puzzled. Even if Zhang Xiaohu has the cultivation of the path of immortals, I am certain that when he was at Lingering Fragrance Peak, he was definitely not at the path of immortals. It has only been a few months, and he was able to subdue Ming Qing? Ming Qing still has more than 2,000 Wuming Hall disciples of the Incense sect. Ming Qing only needs to give the order, and these 2,000 disciples will definitely kill their way out of ethereal heights. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote. Chapter 1156. Junior Sister Shuozhen, quickly send a disciple to the Misty School. Have Ming Qing, Gao Kunheng, or Zhang Xiaohu come to Yaoshan. Oh, forget about Zhang Xiaohu. Have one of them come. We'll know what's going on if we ask them. Besides, our focus isn't on the Misty School. As long as we get our hands on the Yaoshan Immortal Abode, we'll be able to take care of the Misty School. Nun Jingyi said calmly. Yes, I understand. Nun Shuozhen replied. However, leader, you should plan ahead. If that Zhang Xiaohu is really an immortal, he might even avenge the Misty School. Avenge? Nun Jingyi sneered. Even if he's an immortal, how could he be a match for us? At this moment, another disciple came up to report. Leader, between the clouds and the water has sent a disciple here. He wants me to go to the campsite between the clouds and the water. He says he has something important to discuss. What does Bai Yinqiu want now? Nun Jingyi frowned. This is her first time at Yaoshan. Now she wants to take charge of the Yaoshan Immortal Abode? Then he asked, other than asking me to spread the incense cult, who else was invited? Leader, there's also the Alliance of Righteous Path and the Dalan Temple. Peacock, you go. Go and take a look on my behalf. I don't think the Dalan Temple's Master Changsheng or Zhang San of the Alliance of Righteous Path will be there. Nun Jingyi said. Yes, disciple obeys. Peacock stood up. While you're at between the clouds and the water, I have something to do. Nun Jingyi said thoughtfully. Peacock went to the tent between the clouds and the water. Just as Nun Jingyi expected, the Alliance of Righteous Path had sent Vice Alliance Leader Chai and the Dalan Temple had sent Great Master Changgang. Inside the tent, other than Bai Yinqiu, Liang Sangxiu, and a few other disciples, Hao Yunjinren and the other two were nowhere to be seen. After greeting everyone, Peacock carefully sat on Vice Alliance Leader Chai's lap. She looked at the Great Master Changgang and Vice Alliance Leader Chai, and asked Bai, I wonder why Bai Zhangmen has asked me to preach the incense sect. Of course, Bai Yinqiu looked at Peacock and smiled. I did not invite all of you here to drink tea and chat. I do have something important that I need your help with. Peacock looked at the Great Master Changgang and said nothing. The Great Master Changgang put his palms together and said, If there's anything we can help with, please tell us, Bai Zhangmen. It's like this. Mount Yao Bai Yinqiu looked at the three of them, paused and said, According to the rumors in Jianghu, Mount Yao is about to have a treasure of the immortal path. Although I don't know what it is, based on my observations, it should be something incredible. Bai Zhangmen is right. Vice Alliance Leader Chai nodded. It should be an earth-shattering treasure. Yes, that's exactly it. I think so too. Bai Yinqiu nodded seriously and replied, However, since it's a treasure of the immortal Tao, it's useless for ordinary Jianghu people to obtain it. They might even cause some trouble for no reason, or even cause a bloody storm. In my opinion, Since this treasure is useless to ordinary martial artists, then for the sake of the stability of Jianghu, we shouldn't let ordinary martial artists participate in this. By Zhang Men. Why does it sound so awkward? Vice Alliance Leader Chai smirked. Hee, Vice Alliance Leader Chai, I'm only talking about ordinary martial artists. The Righteous Alliance has already won a seat in the Huayu Peak Martial Arts Assembly. Of course, they have the right to participate in this treasure of Mount Yao. Of course. Vice Alliance Leader Chai nodded. Then, by Zhang Men means to chase away all the martial artists who are here? Peacock asked. How is that possible? Bai Yanqiu said. They're already here. Even if we ask them to leave, they won't. Even if they walk for a few miles, they will stop and observe the situation at Mount Yao. Then, what's Bai Zhangmen's plan? Great Master Chang Gung asked curiously. What I'm saying is that the treasure hunt at Mount Yao should be led by the 4 sects of the Immortal Path. We will search for it first. If we're not fated, then the other martial arts sects will be allowed to participate. What do you all think? Great idea. Great Master Chang Gung clapped his hands. This way, we can reduce the number of killings and fair distribution. I agree. I have no objections. Vice Alliance Leader Chai nodded. But, how should we do it? Peacock smiled. If the method is suitable, then Incense sect will have no objections. In my opinion, there are too many disciples from different sects on Mount Yao. Not only is it chaotic, but the treasure of the Immortal Path has always had a spirit. If their misdeeds disturb the treasure of the Immortal Path, and cause it to no longer appear, then wouldn't our efforts be in vain? Since Mount Yao is so chaotic, then let the disciples of the various sects leave first. They've been searching for so long and have not found it. I'm sure they're not fated. Let's clear them out first. Then, we'll slowly search the peak of Mount Yao inch by inch. No matter which side of Mount Yao the treasure is on, one of them will be able to get it. Treasures could only be obtained by the virtuous. It was the will of the heavens that each of the 4 sects of the Tao of Immortals occupied one side of Mount Yao. No one knew which side of Mount Yao the treasure was. It would belong to whoever obtained it, and the other 3 sects had no objections. What do you all think? Peacock thought for a moment. Bai Zhangmen is right. I agree. However, I'll have to go back and report to the hierarch. She'll make the decision. The other 2 also said the same thing. Bai Yanqiu had expected this. He smiled. Don't worry. You can go back and report to the hierarch. After 3 hours, if none of you send disciples over, then I'll take it that you agree with between the clouds and the water. Then, I'll send an ultimatum to the people on Mount Yao. They have 4 hours to leave the mountain. After that, we'll send our disciples up the mountain and begin the search. What if they still refuse to leave the mountain? Vice Alliance Leader Chai asked. Then before the 4 sects of the Immortal Path go up the mountain, we'll do a cleansing. Anyone who refuses to leave Mount Yao will be killed without mercy. Bai Yanqiu said coldly. Killed without mercy? Hee. Vice Alliance Leader Chai sneered. Great Master Chang Gung couldn't bear it. He put his palms together and said, Ba. Also, there are many sects around Mount Yao. If the 4 sects of the Immortal Path don't restrain them, I'm afraid it'll cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, between the clouds and the water suggests that we form a law enforcement team with our disciples to maintain order around Mount Yao. Of course, the law enforcement team can be led by anyone. Great Master Chang Gung looked at the others and nodded. I think this is a good idea. The people of Jianghu are intertwined with each other. It's hard to say who has a grudge against each other. We might not see each other on a regular basis. Now that we're all gathered together, how can we not cause trouble? It's okay if they cause trouble, but let's not delay our business. Peacock didn't agree immediately. She smiled and said, I think it's a good idea as well. However, we'll have to report this to our hierarch. Then let's report it together. Vice Leader Chai felt uncomfortable listening to Bai Yanqiu talk about the 4 sects of the Immortal Path. But he couldn't say anything, so he waved his hand impatiently. Then I'll wait here for your reply. Bai Yanqiu stood up to send them off. After the 3 of them left, Bai Yanqiu ordered, Liang Songshu, gather the sect's elites and estimate the size of the foothills to the south. Be sure to get rid of these annoying flies as soon as possible. Yes, I understand. Liang Cengxu replied from afar. Bai Yinqiu looked at the verdant Mount Yao, his face glowing with excitement. When Chang'e returned to the incense cult's encampment, Nun Jingyi wasn't in the wooden house. Nun Xuezhen heard Chang'e's words and frowned. She asked curiously, "When did Between the Clouds and the Water become so proactive? They came early. Why didn't they do anything? Why did they have to wait until the four sects gathered? Is it because they don't want to bear the evil reputation?" However, the matter of the enforcement team can be considered. According to the report of the outer sect disciples, many people have died around Mount Yao. If it weren't for the temptation of the immortal mansion, wouldn't the sects have already fought each other? I'm sure the hierarch will agree. I'll give the order now. Thank you for your trouble, Nun Xuezhen. I think so too. Chang'e nodded. After a long time, Nun Jingyi still hadn't returned. Seeing that the incense stick's time was almost up, Chang'e couldn't help but ask, "Nun Xuezhen, I wonder, where did the hierarch go? It's almost time to meet Between the Clouds and the Water." Well, Nun Xuezhen hesitated and said, "The hierarch didn't say where he was going. He went out alone. I think he went to the Dalan Temple's encampment in the north of Mount Yao." Well, Chang'e didn't know whether she should send someone to look for him or report it herself. But then, Chang'e's eyes lit up and her heart calmed down a lot. She looked back at Nun Xuezhen and said with a smile, "Nun Xuezhen, I'll have to trouble you to tell the outer sect disciples to gather at the foot of Mount Yao except for those on duty. For hours later, when there's news from Between the Clouds and the Water, we'll immediately go up the mountain and capture all the disciples of the sects on the west side of Mount Yao. Seal their major acupoints and send them to Between the Clouds and the Water." Nun Xuezhen was stunned and stopped her. "Chang'e, shouldn't we wait for the hierarch to return first?" "Haha, Nun Xuezhen, the hierarch is at the Dalan Temple's encampment. Great Master Chang'e went back to report it. How could she not know? Since she hasn't returned yet, I should be the one to make the decision." Nun Xuezhen patted her forehead and said with a smile, "Look at me. I've always followed the hierarch's lead. I forgot that I should listen to your opinions in the future. I don't dare. I'm still young and have a lot to learn from you, Nun Xuezhen. I'll have to trouble Nun Xuezhen to point out my shortcomings." Chapter 1157. I wouldn't dare. I'm just good at handling chores, but I'm far from being farsighted. Abbess Xuezhen waved her hands. Details determine success or failure. I need someone as meticulous as you, Chang'e said with a smile. Then Chang'e added, "Also, I'll have to trouble you to send someone to inform Between the Clouds and the Water that I'll help them clean up Yao Mountain. I'll send you a message about the law enforcement team later." "Yes, I'll do it right away." Abbess Xuezhen was pleased to see Chang'e handle things in an orderly manner. She cupped her hands and left. Not long after, in front of Between the Clouds and the Water's camp on the south side of Yao Mountain, a huge blood-red signal flew into the air. Then a voice sounded from the foot of Yao Mountain. "Disciples of all sects on Yao Mountain, listen up. From now on, leave the mountain immediately. If you're still on the mountain within 4 hours, you'll have to bear the consequences." This voice must have been spoken by someone with strong internal energy. The voice traveled so far that even the people on the peak of Yao Mountain should be able to hear it. Soon after, similar cries could be heard from the other 3 sides of Yao Mountain. The cries continued for 3 times before they stopped. "Haha, Chang'e, have you sent your disciples out?" Chang'e was sitting on a chair, deep in thought. Abbess Jingyi's voice sounded. Her expression seemed to be much more relaxed than when Chang'e left. "Yes, sect leader. I've made arrangements on my own. Please," Chang'e said in a panic. "Haha, of course not." Abbess Jingyi raised her hand and interrupted Chang'e. "I asked you to come to Yao Mountain to train you. If you can't even make a decision on such a small matter, how can I be at ease handing over the incense cult to you?" "Yes, I understand." Chang'e nodded. "But I don't understand. Why did Between the Clouds and the Water make a move at this time? What's so hard to understand?" Abbess Jingyi smiled. "If it were me, I wouldn't think about it. Sometimes, when you think about too many things, you'll be afraid. You're right, sect leader. But I'm young and inexperienced. I still want to think about it and come up with a countermeasure. Yes, you're right. Back then, our sect didn't have the same passion for research as you. Nun Jingyi praised. However, when you think about it, between the clouds and the water is ranked last among the 4 immortal sects, aside from the Misty School. Now that the Misty School hasn't come, and this is the first time between the clouds and the water has made an appearance in Jianghu, she must be feeling uneasy. She doesn't want to bear the notoriety of offending the entire Jianghu, so she can only rely on us to have some confidence. This disciple had the same thought earlier, but I suddenly feel that something is wrong, but I don't know what exactly is wrong. It's as if I can sense where the door is, but I can't see it. Ah! At this point, Chang'e exclaimed. Even Abbess Jingyi's expression changed. She stood up and said, "That's right. That's it. By Yanqiu, this bastard. He actually. By the way, is the disciple I sent to Mount Qing ready?" Abbess Jingyi hurriedly instructed. This disciple has already arranged for the outer sect disciples to wait in front of the mountain, except for those on duty. Chang'e replied immediately. That's not enough. Have the inner sect disciples who have nothing to do go as well. Also, send some outer sect male disciples to change their attire and go to the other sides of Mount Yao, especially the south side. Abbess Jingyi ordered. Yes, this disciple will go and give the order right away. Chang'e bowed and left, but returned after a while. Looking at Abbess Jingyi's gloomy expression, he asked tentatively, "Sect leader, isn't it a bit inappropriate for between the clouds and the water to occupy the south side of Mount Yao?" Hee, that's exactly the case. Chang'e, you are very good. You actually thought so much. Even our sect. Sigh, even Master Longevity and Alliance leader Zhang San didn't think of this. Abbess Jingyi nodded and said, "It was said in ancient times that there are 4 divine beasts between heaven and earth. These 4 divine beasts are related to directions. The azure dragon of the east, the white tiger of the west, the vermilion bird of the south, the black tortoise of the north, and the yellow true dragon of the middle. That's why the immortal Dao Palace is located in the north facing the south, emphasizing the azure dragon on the left and the white tiger on the right. Didn't you see that my Emotian Palace is also located in the north facing the south?" Yes, this disciple just suddenly thought of it. That's why I was surprised. Chang'e nodded. Also, this old woman was careless. I was only thinking about how the immortal mansion was unearthed. Between the clouds and the water's actions made this old woman realize that Mount Yao couldn't be an immortal mansion. If Mount Yao is an immortal mansion, then the exit must be in the south of Mount Yao. Between the clouds and the water occupies the south side of Mount Yao, so it naturally has a reason to find the exit first. Chang'e suddenly understood. And between the clouds and the water allowed others to search the mountain for a long time, so they probably just thought of the key point. Exactly. That's why. Let the male disciples fish in troubled waters. Maybe they'll find something. Otherwise, if between the clouds and the water finds the exit quietly, wouldn't we have come in vain? Nun Jingyi's somewhat relaxed mood just now became bad again. She looked outside and said, "Where's the Misty School? What's the news?" Chang'e was stunned and said in a low voice, "Sect leader, the outer sect disciples have just received the order. I'm afraid the news won't come until tomorrow." Sigh. It's really one trouble after another. Why are they all gathered together? At this moment, a voice sounded from the south side of Mount Yao. "Disciples of various sects on Mount Yao. There's not much time left. There's only 1 hour left. Come down quickly. If you don't obey the order, you'll have to bear the consequences." Sect leader. It doesn't seem to be that fast. Chang'e said in surprise. If it were up to me, why would I give them 4 hours? I'll chase them away as soon as I see them. After all, no one can guarantee that there won't be any accidents during this period of time. Sure enough, in less than an hour, another signal came from the south side of Mount Yao. Chang'e looked up at Nun Jingyi and saw that there were still many disciples of various sects on Mount Yao. She said coldly, "Go tell the disciples to go up and clean up. Kill those who should be killed. Since these disciples of various sects have just come up from the incense cult's defense, it means they don't put us in their eyes. Moreover, Our disciples have already shouted at the foot of the mountain. We've already done our duty. Sect leader. Kill without mercy? Chang'e was a little hesitant. Yes. Kill without mercy. Nanjing Yi didn't hesitate and waved her hand. In Jianghu, it's either you die or I live. How can there be so much mercy? I've brought you out to see some of the real Jianghu. Yes. This disciple understands. Chang'e retreated. Not long after, the disciples of Incense Cult, the Alliance of Righteous Tao, the Dalan Temple, and Between the Clouds and the Water all took out their weapons and rushed up Mount Yao. Immediately, screams came from the three sides of Mount Yao. The disciples of various sects who were still on Mount Yao and didn't want to come down because they wanted to see what was going on before making a decision were now filled with regret. They wished they had followed the disciples who had already gone down the mountain and left obediently. It seemed that it was too late to leave now. A disciple of Cheonghua Island heard the screams not far away and saw the disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water using their lightness skills. He immediately threw down the weapon in his hand and stood there obediently with his hands raised high. At the same time he shouted, "Senior brothers, it's my fault. I'll go down the mountain now. If I don't come up here before he could finish his words." Two disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water closed in on him. Without saying anything, they swung their sabers and chopped at him. They turned a deaf ear to the disciples' words. The pitiful disciple had originally held on to some hope, but when he saw the cold gleam of the two sabers striking his body, he realized that what the Shuiyin Den had said just now was true. They wanted to kill the chicken to scare the monkey. With two slashing sounds, the two disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water didn't mind the unarmed disciple of Cheonghua Island running away. They had already blocked all the possible escape routes. The two sabers hit the vital parts of the disciple's body. The body of the disciple of Cheonghua Island went limp. His face was still filled with regret. He died on the spot. The two disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water didn't even look when they saw that the disciple was cut down. They directly stepped over the corpse and chased after the others. However, what they didn't notice was that the corpse of the disciple of Cheonghua Island was lying on the ground. The wounds caused by the sabers were dripping with blood. Drop by drop, the blood slid down the skin and dripped onto the ground. This should have been normal. However, after a while, the blood that should have been decreasing didn't coagulate. Instead, it increased. Drop by drop, it turned into streams of blood that flowed onto the ground. What was even more strange was that the blood didn't stop when it dripped onto the lush grass. Instead, it directly seeped into the ground, leaving no trace behind. Not long after, the corpse of the disciple of Cheonghua Island became pale and slightly dry. This strange phenomenon didn't only happen to the corpse of the disciple of Cheonghua Island. All the disciples of the other sects who were killed were the same. However, the disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water were killing the disciples of the other sects on the mountain. The disciples of the other sects were running away in panic. Who would care about such a small matter that no one knew about? At this moment, everyone at the foot of Yao Mountain realized that the four sects were really going to be ruthless. The people of the other sects were dumbfounded. They thought that the law doesn't punish the masses. Although the four sects of the immortal Tao were powerful, they wouldn't go against the entire Jianghu. They miscalculated the determination of the four sects of the immortal Tao to get the immortal mansion. They also miscalculated the situation they were in. Naturally, they would have to pay the price with blood. However, they definitely wouldn't dare to rush up Yao Mountain to save people. In the midst of the emergency, they suddenly heard that people were going up to clean up the four sides of Yao Mountain. However, there were no screams coming from the north side of the Dalan Temple. Quick, let's go to the Dalan Temple and ask the elders to uphold justice. This, killing people like scything flax, is simply a demonic method. A sect elder shouted. Yes, let's go. Even if we can't stop them, we have to make the disciples on the mountain run to the Dalan Temple. Everyone came to a realization. Chapter 1158. Thus, a group of people with profound inner strength began to shout at the foot of Yao Mountain, hoping that the fleeing disciples of the various sects would hear them and head to the north of Yao Mountain. But, not to mention whether they could hear them. Even if they did, How could their inner strength compare to the disciples of the three immortal sects? Another group of people anxiously rode their horses to the Dalan Temple's encampment at the north of Yao Mountain. In front of the simple and crude encampment of the Dalan Temple, there was already a dense crowd of people. At the front of the crowd were a few agitated old men. They grabbed the sleeves of the monks on duty and pleaded, "Little master, let my mother see Grandmaster Changsheng. My boy is on Yao Mountain. He is the sole heir of our Shi family for 3 generations. The mission of bringing glory to our Shi family rests on his shoulders. If anything happens to him, our Shi family will be finished. That's right, little master, please take pity on us." That grandson of mine was just curious for a moment, so he went up the mountain to play. He said he would come down in a while, but I'm afraid he went too far. The Righteous Alliance's disciples are only halfway up the mountain. If Grandmaster Longevity appears, my grandson should be saved. The people in front all had blood relatives on the mountain. They were also young and impetuous, so they didn't listen to the cries of the 4 sections. When their relatives at the foot of the mountain saw the massacre on the mountain, they ran to the Dalan Temple to ask Grandmaster Changsheng of the Dalan Temple to uphold justice. The monks of the Dalan Temple held wooden sticks in their hands and stood there expressionlessly. They blocked the entrance of the Dalan Temple's encampment and didn't let anyone in. As the clamor grew louder, finally, an old monk walked past a big tree in the distance. When he came closer, everyone recognized him as Grandmaster Changsheng. Everyone was delighted and shouted, "Grandmaster Changsheng is merciful. Quickly save our disciples. They are young and ignorant and offended the 4 immortal sections. Grandmaster, please spare their lives. When we bring them home, we will definitely punish them severely. Grandmaster, if you save our disciples, our Xianxia school will definitely erect a statue of you in our school. We will burn incense and kowtow to you every day, that's right. Master Changsheng is a Buddha in all homes. This kind of small matter. Isn't it a piece of cake?" Reverend Changsheng forced a smile and walked forward. He put his palms together and said, "Benefactors, please calm down. Our Dalan Temple has always been merciful. If we can save people, we will save them. However, Yao Mountain has 4 sides, and my Dalan Temple only occupies the northern side. The other 3 sides are occupied by the incense cult, between the clouds and the water, and the Righteous Alliance. I'm afraid my Dalan Temple cannot interfere with the affairs of the other sections. The treasure on Mount Yao has been quiet for many days now, and there are no signs of it being unearthed. Furthermore, the disciples of the various sects have been rashly heading up the mountain in search of treasure. It's already a mess, and if there's any movement, wouldn't it lead to a huge storm? Therefore, when Bai Zhangmen of Between the Clouds and the Water proposed to clean up the disciples of Yao Mountain, my Dalan Temple and the other 2 sects agreed. However, Between the Clouds and the Water's methods were too ruthless. My Dalan Temple's Master Changsheng couldn't bear to see bloodshed. As early as 4 hours before Between the Clouds and the Water's shout, he had already sent many disciples and lay disciples up the mountain to persuade the disciples of the various sects to return to the northern side of Yao Mountain. However, as you all have seen, no matter how the disciples of my Dalan Temple tried to persuade them, not a single person came down. Now take a look again. My Dalan Temple has not killed a single person. Instead, it has accommodated the disciples of the other 3 sides. Since Between the Clouds and the Water, the Righteous Alliance, and the incense cult began to kill people, the disciples of the various sects on the northern side of Yao Mountain, has not a single person come down? Everyone, my Dalan Temple is one of the 4 sects of the path of immortality, but it is only one of them. My Dalan Temple is merciful, and has left a path of survival for the disciples of the various sections. However, this path of survival must be taken by someone. Just now, Grandmaster Longevity made it clear that my Dalan Temple will protect the disciples of the other 3 sects before they find out. If the other sects discover that the surviving disciples have gathered at the northern side of the Dalan Temple, I'm afraid, even my Dalan Temple won't be able to bear the consequences. While Grandmaster Longevity Fortune was explaining, the crowd looked up. Sure enough, more and more people were gathering at the northern side of Yao Mountain. However, not a single person came down. The monks of the Dalan temple held weapons in their hands, and only whispered words of persuasion. They didn't move. Those people, whether they were already at the northern side or had fled from the other two sides, turned a deaf ear to their words. There were even some disciples of the various sects who were gesticulating. The crowd watched from afar and didn't know what to say. At this time, someone from the back of the crowd shouted, "The Dalan temple really doesn't live up to its reputation. I thought Grandmaster Longevity Fortune was merciful, and would take it upon himself to save the disciples of the various sections. But now it seems that he is also under pressure from the other sections. Since that's the case, why do we still need to beg him? Why don't we band together? I don't believe that only the 4 immortal Dao sects have the right to speak in the entire pugilistic world. Are all my other sects just puppets? That's right, that's right. We should also form an alliance and advance and retreat together. We won't have to give face to the 4 immortal Dao sects." The crowd was noisy again. Some were anxious to seek help, while others had ulterior motives. In the end, apart from a dozen or so people who had relatives on Yao Mountain who stayed in front of the Dalan temple's camp, most of the others left in a hurry. Watching the crowd leave in a hurry, Grandmaster Longevity Fortune sighed for no reason. He put his palms together and murmured, "Ba, I've sinned, I've sinned." Then he turned around and walked to a tree in the distance. He turned around a few old pine trees. Under the shade of the trees, Grandmaster Longevity, Great Master Chonggung, and a few old monks sat cross-legged. Some of them held prayer beads in their hands, while others held wooden fish in their hands. All of them had a profound look on their faces as they recited sutras with their eyes closed. Under another cypress tree not far from them, the 3 grandmasters, Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming and Yuan Wu, were using the abundant qi of heaven and earth in Yao Mountain to draw qi into their bodies. Hearing that Grandmaster Longevity Fortune had returned, Grandmaster Longevity Fortune opened his eyes. He looked around and said in a low voice, "How is it? Junior brother Chongqing, have they dispersed?" Ba. Reporting to Abbot, they have dispersed, but it seems there's still some trouble. Grandmaster Longevity Fortune recounted what had happened just now. In the end he said, "There seems to be some people with bad intentions in this group. They want to use this as an opportunity to incite some heroes of the pugilistic world to go against the 4 immortal Dao sects. Abbot, how should we deal with them? Cause is cause, effect is effect. You have to reap what you sow. Junior brother Chongqing, didn't you see? All of Mount Yao is sowing the seeds of karma. Now that the seeds have been sown, no matter how much we worry, no matter how much we meddle, what can we do to stop the karma? Perhaps we'll be able to reap the fruit soon." Yes. Many thanks for the abbot's teachings. Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said in a low voice. Senior brother Chongqing, don't feel bad. Between the clouds and the water is certainly ruthless, but there was some leeway before. Even the Dalan temple has shouted at the foot of the mountain countless times. If the people on the mountain knew when to advance or retreat, they would have come down long ago. But look, the knife is already on their necks. They're still thinking about their immortal fate. They've been forced to come to the Dalan temple. They're still unrepentant, ignoring the door of convenience in front of them. How can the Dalan temple change this kind of fate? There are still thousands of lives. This old monk can't bear it. Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said with a shake of his head. They don't cherish their own lives. Why should we cherish them for them? Great Master Chonggung disagreed. Go. Inform the disciples on the mountain to rush down from the top of the mountain. If there's anyone who doesn't obey, seal their acupoints and kick them down Mount Yao. If there's anyone who relies on their superior lightness skills to escape from the gaps between the Dalan temple's disciples and stays on Mount Yao, when the Dalan temple's disciples come up again to search for treasures, kill them without mercy. Without waiting for Grandmaster Longevity Fortune to speak, he continued, Junior brother Chongqing, this is the Dalan temple's origin returning tribulation. Even the 3 martial uncles have come to face the tribulation. If you and I don't take the initiative, I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable. Abbot, we're lucky. Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said no more. Not long after, a disciple passed the Grandmaster Longevity Fortune's words to Mount Yao. At this time, in the north of Mount Yao, besides the monks of the Dalan Temple, there were only the lay disciples of the Dalan Temple. The monks were easy to deal with as they studied Buddhist scriptures and had good tempers. They were easy to negotiate with the disciples of the various sections. The lay disciples were different. There were many conflicts with the disciples of the various sections. However, because the Grandmaster Longevity Fortune didn't give the order, they didn't dare to act rashly and could only endure. This tolerance made the disciples of the various sects even more arrogant. Not only did they ignore the rules of the Dalan Temple, they even cursed and scolded them indirectly. After hearing the abbot's order, the Dalan Temple disciples looked at each other and didn't say a word. They turned around and went straight to the top of the mountain. Then they used their lightness skills and went down the mountain. This time, when they met the disciples of the various sects, they didn't show any mercy. Without saying a word, they sealed their acupoints and kicked them down the mountain. Every time they kicked, they didn't kick far. The disciples only fell and bled, but they weren't afraid of losing their lives. Just as the Grandmaster Longevity Fortune predicted, there were indeed some clever people. While the Dalan Temple monks were arresting others, they escaped through the gaps. The Dalan Temple monks didn't chase after them. Those people thought they had succeeded and immediately ran away, looking for places they hadn't been to before. Sigh, it seemed that the celestial instruments were like copper coins that had fallen on the ground. As long as you lowered your head, you could see them. Another 2 hours passed, and the screams on Mount Yao gradually died down. The disciples of the three sects began to clean up the scattered corpses on Mount Yao one by one. Although all the corpses were deathly pale, and their bodies were completely drained of blood, who would pay attention to that? Even if they did, they wouldn't make a fuss about it. After all, Jianghu was a bloody place. On the north side of Mount Yao, the Dalan Temple monks had driven nearly 2,000 disciples from the various sects down the mountain. Every one of them had a bloody nose and a swollen face. When the Dalan Temple monks unsealed their acupoints, they were still cursing and spouting nonsense. Great Master Changgung saw this and snorted. He waved his hand and said, "Guardian disciples, quickly go up Mount Yao and clean up the north side of the mountain. Don't leave a single one behind. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark and tip." Chapter 1159. Yes, your disciple obeys. Dozens of monks of various appearances stepped out from behind Great Master Changgung, weapons in hand. Using their lightness skills, they made their way up the mountain. It was obvious that the martial arts of these disciples of the Dharma protectors were much better than the monks who had cleaned up the disciples of the various sects. After the disciples of the Dharma protectors left, Great Master Changgung waved his hand again and said, "All disciples, listen to my orders. Form a straight line from the bottom of the mountain, and search every corner carefully. Do not miss out on anything out of the ordinary." Yes, your disciple obeys. The remaining disciples of the Dalan Temple distanced themselves from each other, and made their way up Yao Mountain step by step. From the looks of it, they were no different from the disciples of the various sections. They all had their heads lowered as they searched for copper coins. Ah! Help! The monks of the Dalan Temple are killing people. Not long after, a series of screams rang out from the top of Yao Mountain. Although the screams came a little late, they still came. At the foot of Yao Mountain, there was a huge crowd of people. It was like a market. Everyone's faces were filled with joy and vigilance. That, combined with the ambition in their eyes, formed a complicated expression. Everyone had heard the screams from the top of the mountain. There were many familiar voices among them, but most of them gritted their teeth and clenched their fists. They looked at the tents and wooden huts at the foot of the mountain with hatred in their eyes. On top of Yao Mountain, the disciples of the four immortal Tao sects searched the mountain in full swing. At the foot of the mountain, there were many more sects than the four immortal Tao sects. The sky was dark. At the foot of Yao Mountain, the four immortal Tao sects had already cleaned up the corpses that had been killed on the mountain. The corpses were thrown carelessly on the ground. Those that belonged to family members or sects were taken away by people crying to the heavens. Those that had not been claimed were left lying there. However, these corpses were no longer even passers-by. Who would care? On Mount Yao, the disciples were holding torches in their hands. The torches looked like specks of starlight. Not far from the foot of the mountain, torches that looked like a river of stars appeared. At the front was a hale and hearty old man, holding a sheathed padao in his hand. Beside him, there were several other people who also looked dignified. Looking behind him, there were thousands of people, all dressed in martial attire, holding torches in one hand and weapons in the other. Their anger soared to the sky as they looked at Yao Shan and followed behind the old man. The procession hadn't even reached the foot of Yao Mountain yet, so it had already attracted the attention of the crowd. Many people whispered, "What is old Master Shang doing?" He was a renowned figure in the Jianghu. How many years had it been since he last appeared? Since you're here today, do you have something important to tell me? That's right. Old Master Shang is a man of virtue and prestige. In the past, many things in the Jianghu were decided by him. It must be because he saw how rampant the four immortal Dao sects were, that he represented the entire martial Dao and wanted to seek justice from the immortal Dao. After the martial arts convention of the incense cult, the people in the Jianghu had a general understanding of the immortal Dao and martial Dao. It was easy for them to talk about it now. Just as the crowd expected, Old Master Shang led the crowd to the campsite between the clouds and the water. The disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water were shocked when they saw the flood of people. Before they could get close, someone had already turned back to report. The person guarding the entrance took a few steps forward and stopped the crowd, saying, "In front of you is our campsite between the clouds and the water. Heroes, please stay." When Old Man Shang heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. This is the territory of Yaoshan, the heart of the Central Plains. This old man is not talented, but after roaming the Jianghu for so many years, I've never heard of Yaoshan becoming the private territory of some sect or sect. Who are you? How dare you say that? The disciple was stunned and sneered. That brat Yu has eyes but doesn't recognize Mount Tai. This is the old Master Shang of a famous martial arts family in the Central Plains. He's more than 70 years old this year, and is old enough to be your grandfather. How can you speak so rudely? The disciple frowned and thought for a while. He cupped his hands and said, "Old Master Shang, it's late now. May I know why you're here?" "Nothing. I just have something to discuss with your sects by Zhang Men." The disciple smiled and said, "Old Master Shang, it's late now. Please go back. Tomorrow, I'll report to my sects by Zhang Men and invite you over for a chat. What do you think?" This disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water was so polite that Old Master Shang couldn't get angry. He coughed and said, "I have something important to discuss with Bai Zhang Men. Little brother, you'd better go back and report it." "That's right. Hurry up and report it. Otherwise, we'll rush into your camp Between the Clouds and the Water. I'm afraid it'll be bad for you Between the Clouds and the Water." Someone boldly shouted from behind. "Who dares to rush into my camp Between the Clouds and the Water?" A loud shout came from not far away. It was Bai Yanqiu's voice. Everyone looked up. Sure enough, the beautiful Bai Yanqiu was walking slowly in the light. Behind her were three old men in Taoist robes. "I'm Shang Xuanzi. Is that Bai Zhang Men Between the Clouds and the Water?" Old Master Shang cupped his hands and asked. "I am Bai Yanqiu. May I know why Old Master Shang is looking for me?" Bai Yanqiu smiled. This seeing Bai Yanqiu in person, Old Master Shang was a little hesitant. But looking at the people behind him, he seemed to have gathered his courage and said, "I've been elected as a representative by the 104 sects in Jianghu. I'd like to ask for an explanation from the four immortal sects led by Between the Clouds and the Water." Old Master Shang, what explanation do you want from us?" Bai Yanqiu asked, as if she already knew the answer. "The immortal sects are admired by all in Jianghu. During the Wulin assembly of the incense sect, we martial sects already know the gap between us and the four immortal sects. Therefore, we've always followed the four immortal sects' lead. However, this magic treasure of Mount Yao is a gift from the heavens. Only the virtuous can possess it. And this virtuous person doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the immortal sects. We martial sects should also have this right. But now not only have the four immortal sects surrounded Mount Yao like an iron bucket, None of the other sects in Jianghu are allowed to approach. Moreover, just now, the 4 immortal sects were ruthless and killed countless martial sects on Mount Yao. This kind of behavior. How can we martial sects accept it? Haha, I understand. Bai Yanqiu smiled. But what do you think, Old Master Shang? Old Master Shang waved his hand. Bai Zhangmen, you're wrong. This isn't my idea alone. It's the joint idea of all 104 sections. It's all the same. Let's hear it, Old Master Shang. It's nothing much. It's just that we martial sects want to be treated the same as the 4 immortal sects. First, we'd like to ask the 4 immortal sects to give us some space on Mount Yao. Second, we'd like to send people up the mountain with the immortal sects, search for the magic treasure together? Bai Yanqiu smiled faintly. But what if we find the magic treasure? What should we do? Naturally, it'll belong to whoever finds it. Old Master Shang laughed. Does Bai Zhangmen have other ideas? Bai Yanqiu shrugged. I can't think of anything at the moment. It's just that the Jianghu has always had a rule of killing and robbing. If you pick up a magic treasure but don't have the fortune to use it and are killed, who will it belong to? Naturally, it'll belong to whoever finds it. Old Master Shang didn't say anything. Instead, a man beside him spoke up. Hee, I don't know which sect's leader this is, but if it's as you say, then wouldn't the entire Mount Yao be in a state of carnage again? Countless deaths and injuries? Bai Yanqiu smiled. That's better than only the 4 immortal sects controlling Mount Yao, and not letting us go up the mountain to search for the treasure. The man gritted his teeth and looked at the people behind him. He mustered up his courage and said. Bai Yanqiu was about to speak when he heard someone behind him say angrily. What kind of dirty people are these? With your cultivation, you want to covet the Mount Yao immortal abode? Bai Yanqiu was shocked. Before he could look back, he saw a person fly up from behind him and stop 3 feet in the air in front of Bai Yanqiu. It was Taoist Master Hao Yun. Taoist Master Hao Yun had a fiery temper and was never afraid of trouble. At this time, when he heard the condemnation of people who were like ants in his eyes, he was already impatient. Without waiting for Bai Yanqiu to finish speaking, he took out a small, flute-like magic weapon from his arms and floated into the air. He scolded. If you can borrow this attack of mine, I'll make the decision to let you go up the mountain. As he spoke, he didn't wait for the others to speak. He made a hand seal and injected his true qi into the magic weapon. Suddenly, the magic weapon emitted a fiery red brilliance. Taoist Master Hao Yin was stunned. His hand paused for a moment, but then he waved his hand. The magic weapon drew a semicircle in front of Taoist Master Hao Yun, and a dense number of fireflies flew out. As if they had intelligence, they floated towards Old Shang and the others. Bai Yanqiu saw Taoist Master Hao Yun floating in the air and knew it was bad. Just as he shouted a word, Taoist Master Hao Yun had already made his move. Seeing the countless sparks flying out, Bai Yanqiu's face showed surprise and a bitter smile. Seeing this, Old Man Shang's snow-white eyebrows furrowed. He didn't understand what these sparks were. When one of the sparks flew in front of him, he stretched out the sheathed machete in his hand, wanting to block it. Who would have thought that the sparks didn't seem to be very powerful in the air? After being blocked by the scabbard, a crisp "pa" sound rang out and it exploded in the air. Once again, it formed a firework-like shape that enveloped Old Shang. This time, it was different from before. It was even faster. Before Old Shang could react, the tiny sparks had already hit his body. The sparks were similar to the fire talismans that Zhang Xiaohua was used to using. When they landed on Old Shang's body, they immediately ignited his clothes, skin, hair, and so on. Even the scabbard was ignited by a few sparks. Not only that, the sparks seemed to be poisonous. When they landed on his skin, it was incomparably painful. Even Old Shang couldn't withstand it. With a scream, Old Shang threw away the scabbard and hurriedly wiped his face with his hand, wanting to extinguish the sparks. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. Chapter 1160. However, how could these sparks be extinguished by hand? Just as Old Master Shang's hand touched the sparks, His hand was immediately ignited. A sharp pain came from his hand again. Old Master Shang involuntarily rubbed his hand against his body. As a result, his body was also on fire. Save me, save me. Old Master Shang's entire body was in sharp pain. He unconsciously jumped up on the spot, his hands grabbing everywhere, trying to find someone to save him. However, at this moment, how could there be people around him who were unharmed? It wasn't just around him. Within a radius of 10 feet around Old Master Shang, there were about 100 people. At this moment, they were all howling and frantically trying to extinguish the fire on their bodies. The more clever ones had already laid down on the ground and rolled violently, hoping to extinguish the fire with their wings. Ha ha ha. Seeing this scene, Taoist Master Hao Yin, who was in midair, laughed loudly. He turned around and said, "Junior brother, did you see this? My raging flame flute actually has such power. I'm looking forward to it." Taoist Master Hao Yu and Taoist Master Hao Feng also didn't hide their whereabouts. They leaped up and flew to Taoist Master Hao Yun's side. They cupped their hands and smiled. "Congratulations, senior brother, for your great improvement in magic power." "Hee, it's nothing, it's nothing." Taoist Master Hao Yun waved his hand and said, "How is it that my magic power has improved? It's just that the heaven and earth vital qi here is abundant. Our magic tools can display their power." "Oh?" Grand Wind stared blankly for a moment, then immediately understood. He also laughed out loud. "That's right. I was just wondering. According to the secret manual in our sect, our magic tools are incomparably powerful, like the bright moon. But when we use them, they're like fireflies. So it's because of the qi of heaven and earth." Stupid, stupid. As he spoke, he also took out a small awl and waved it in front of him. With a crackling sound, a net flashing with lightning formed in front of the awl. "Go." Taoist Master Hao Feng pointed with his hand. The net flew directly towards where Taoist Master Hao Feng pointed. There was a group of martial artists who had followed Old Master Shang and the rest here. When they saw Old Master Shang and the rest on fire, they hesitated, not knowing whether to run away or go forward to help. The flashing lightning net grew bigger and bigger in the abundant origin energy of heaven and earth. The lightning arcs also became thicker, and there were faint sounds of wind and thunder. By the time it reached the group of people, it had already grown to about 50 feet, and was about to envelop them. When everyone saw this, they were already terrified. Some took out their weapons in an attempt to defend themselves, while others turned around in an attempt to escape. However, no matter how much they resisted, the net enveloped them all. Immediately after, a crackling sound similar to beans being fried sounded. About 40 to 50 people died on the spot, before they could even let out any screams. "Ha ha ha, as expected. My lightning awl is actually so powerful." Taoist Vast Wind stood in the air and laughed wildly. He turned his head and said, "Senior brother, don't you want to try your lightning hammer?" "That's exactly what I was thinking." The nearby Taoist Master Hao Yu also seemed to be unable to restrain his curiosity. He reached into his bosom, wanting to take out his magic tool. At this moment, a buzzing sound came from the top of Yao Mountain. Taoist Master Hao Yu did not have time to take out his lightning hammer, nor did he have time to chase after the group of people who had already scattered. He immediately turned around and looked at Yao Mountain. When he saw the beautiful scene above Yao Mountain, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Above Yao Mountain, about 100 feet above the originally pitch-black sky, there was an extremely small dot of light that was faintly emitting a trace of light, gradually appearing in the sky. The buzzing sound was coming from that dot of light. It was getting louder and louder, more and more deafening. Immortal Mansion? Taoist Master Hao Yu was stunned for a moment, then became ecstatic. His heart felt as if it was about to fly out. Just as he was about to fly forward, a palm pressed down on his shoulder. Taoist Master Hao Yu also suppressed his excitement and said, "Junior brother, don't be anxious. It's still early." Bai Yanqiu, who was standing behind the three Taoist masters, was also extremely excited. Seeing that the immortal mansion that she had been planning for so long was about to appear, her palms also slowly became sweaty. Not only were the three Taoist masters between the clouds and the water attracted by the strange scene in the sky, Even the disciples of the various sects who were previously shocked by Taoist Master Hao Yu and Taoist Master Hao Yu's thunderous methods gradually stopped in their tracks. Their mouths were wide open as they looked at the sky above Yao Mountain. The only ones who were not surprised were Old Man Shang, and the others who were killed by the raging flame flute, and the lightning, all dead. The same scene also appeared in various other places of Yao Mountain. In the camp of the School of Fragrance, Nun Jingyi had already led Peacock and the others to the front of the wooden house. Xu Qing and Xu Jia, the two grand elders, soared into the air, unable to hide the excitement on their faces as they quietly watched. In the camp of the Dalan Temple, Grandmaster Changgung, Great Master Changgung and Grandmaster Chongxing clasped their hands together and stood there respectfully. The dot of light in the night sky was a little brighter. Although the fiery red light was still weak, it faintly reflected Grandmaster Changgung's indescribable expression. On the contrary, Grandmaster Yuandao and the others were still sitting under the tree, as if they had nothing to do with the immortal mansion. In the westernmost camp of the Righteous Alliance, although they had the largest number of people, there was no one from the immortal mansion. Alliance Master Zhang San also stood in the open space, his eyes first looking at the light, then turned to the south of Yao Mountain. His face was slightly red. No one knew what he was thinking. Not long after, the dot of light in the sky of Yao Mountain grew larger, slowly becoming the size of a fist, then the size of a boulder. The blood-red light was like countless sharp swords that split the night sky. The red light was like a burning flame, boiling and rotating in circles, illuminating the night sky. Heaven and Earth's Yuan Qi, the previously scarce Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, rushed in all directions along with the light. It was even stronger than the previous hurricane, blowing the trees of Yao Mountain askew, almost causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. The buzzing sound that accompanied the appearance of the blood-red light never stopped. Not only did it get louder and louder, but it also gradually became rhythmic. If one listened carefully, wouldn't it be the sound of war drums? But at this time, the tens of thousands of people at the foot of the mountain were all holding their breaths, watching with rapt attention. Who could tell in detail? A passage to the immortal realm. It was unknown who was the first to come to a realization. His figure flashed, and he was about to rush forward, wanting to find the best position before the so-called passage appeared. It didn't matter that this person moved, but the people around him also came to a realization. None of them were fools, and their daily cultivation of Qinggong was no worse than the people around them. In an instant, these people all rushed forward. It didn't matter that this group of people moved, but the people around them all came to a realization. Hurry, hurry, who knows how big that passage is? Who knows how long it will appear? As long as we get to the front, we'll definitely have a chance. This was what almost everyone was thinking. But at the foot of Yao Mountain, almost all of the famous people of Jianghu had come. Tens of thousands was a small number, and who knew how many people secretly hid at the back, because they didn't have the qualifications to go forward. Now that the passage to the immortal realm was about to open, who could still be reserved? Like a swarm of bees, they squeezed toward Yao Mountain. Don't block my way. Get out of the way. Almost all of them said the same thing. It wasn't clear who made the first move, and it wasn't clear whether this person's saber was aimed at the person in front of him, or the sword was aimed at the person beside him. In just a moment, that sword or saber became the fuse that ignited the frenzied slaughter. And this slaughter seemed to be able to spread. From a certain point, it rapidly spread in all directions. As the slaughter spread, the wung-wung sound from the ball of light also became hurried, up and down, with a cadence. First, it vibrated with the sound of slaughter, and after an unknown amount of time, the sound of slaughter actually matched the wung-wung sound. Ah, ah. One after another, miserable screams rose and fell, becoming the melody of the wung-wung sound. One person was killed, and before the blood-dripping sword could be pulled out of the person's body, the person holding the sword had his head smashed flat by a strange weapon. Both of them lay on the ground, dead as can be. However, under the illumination of the blood-red brilliance, the blood that flowed from the bodies of the two people, like the disciples of the various sects who were killed on Yao Mountain, seeped into the ground and disappeared without a trace. This kind of abnormality, even in the daytime, may not be noticed, let alone in the blood-red night. On Yao Mountain, the blood-red brilliance was dazzling, like the setting sun in the west. On Yao Mountain, the heart-wrenching sound was like the sound of war drums in the battlefield. And below Yao Mountain, tens of thousands of people were killing each other, miserable screams and endless blood. This was the main melody of sorrow. Greed, savagery, cunning, and other kinds of human nature that were never revealed before, were revealed one by one at this moment, completely annihilating everyone's reason. Almost everyone forgot why they were waving their sabers, and only mechanically, involuntarily thrusting the weapons in their hands, as if this was the only reason for their existence in this world. A ball of blood-red light, a blood-red mountain, a burst of blood-red sound, a blood-red night, and also a blood-red human nature. In front of the campsite between the clouds and the water, Hao Yun and the other two perfected masters stood in the air and said, "What a tragedy!" Hao Yun and the other two perfected masters killed Old Shang and the others, and resisted the temptation of the ball of light in front of them, and suppressed their impulse to rush over. Just as they were whispering to each other, they saw countless martial artists behind them, rushing up Yao Mountain. They did not dare to be careless, and called out to Bai Yanqiu, rose into the air, and threw the jade talismans that they had prepared long ago on the ground one by one. If it were any other day, they would not be willing to waste them like this, but at this moment, with such abundant qi of heaven and earth, they were not stingy with these little jade talismans. As the four of them flew over, on the side of the campsite between the clouds and the water, a faint layer of yellow light gradually rose up, blocking the group of people outside the light, and no matter if they used weapons or lightness skills, they could not get past it. And the people behind were still rushing up, and the people in front had nowhere to go. They could only turn around and point their weapons at the people coming. Only then could they save their own lives. Amitabha Buddha, a faint Buddhist chant sounded in the air, attracting the attention of Hao Yun and the others. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. The Cultivator's Eternal Legend. Chapter 1161. The commotion at Yao Mountain was earth-shattering. Moreover, it was in the hinterland of the Central Plains, so it had long attracted the attention of countless people. However, the people of the pugilistic world had long since noticed and surrounded the entire Yao Mountain. Even if the other factions wanted to, they were unable to do so. Far away at Misty Peak in Pingyang City, Zhang Xiaohu, who had received his disciple's report, stood at the peak and watched from afar. He was slightly excited when he saw such a beautiful scene. Great Sect Master. Could this really be the passage to the Celestial Realm? Yao Mountain is very close to Misty Mountain Villa. Great Sect Master, should we? Hu Yuni narrowed his eyes. His clenched fists trembled slightly as he tried to suppress his excitement. Hee, Elder Hu, should we go to Yao Mountain to join in the fun? Let's see if there's any celestial fate there. Zhang Xiaohu took a deep breath. His eyes were still fixed on the ball of light at Yao Mountain. Yes, not just me but the others. I'm afraid they all have the same idea. Hu Yuni looked around and smiled. All of you have the same idea? Zhang Xiaohu forced his gaze away from the ball of light. He turned around and looked at the others. Although there was no red light on their faces, their eyes were shining with a faint red color. Great Sect Master. I also have the same idea. When Wenhai was Zhang Xiaohu's master, so he was the first to answer. Elderly, you want it too? Hee, Great Sect Master, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Look at the situation. If there really is a staircase in the air, how can I not be tempted? Li Jian chuckled. If a copper coin fell in front of you, elderly, would you bend down to pick it up? Zhang Xiaohu suddenly asked. Copper coins? Li Jian, who was looking into the distance, was stunned. He looked away and smiled. Why would I pick up that thing? Then what about a tael of silver? Well, if there's no one around, maybe I'll pick it up. If there's someone around, I can't afford to lose face. Li Jian laughed. Then, what if it's a gold ingot? Let's think about it. Li Jian somewhat understood what Zhang Xiaohu meant. Everyone, you've all heard Elder Li's answer just now. To elderly, a copper coin is something that he would never pick up, regardless of whether there's anyone around. As for a tael of silver, if there's someone around, he's afraid of losing face and won't pick it up. If it's a gold ingot, I have to think about it. I don't know if elderly would pick it up. Pick it up? Why not? That's all wine money. Lu Qingyang shouted. Haha. Everyone laughed. After everyone finished laughing, Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and laughed again. However, if these things were placed 6 years ago, my attitude would be completely different from Elder Li's. For a copper coin, I would think about whether or not there's anyone around. For a tael of silver, please. Do you know that when I was a bodyguard at the Lotus Flower Escort Agency, I only had a monthly salary of 6 maces. 1 tael of silver. How could I not give up my face and pick it up? As for a gold ingot, I don't need to think about it like elderly. If it's placed in front of me and someone tries to steal it from me, I'll pull out a knife. Haha. Everyone laughed. Everyone thinks that with the same few things, why would he make a different choice if he sees someone different? Moreover, if there's a gold ingot and elderly is on the side thinking about it, there's a few people like me who want to steal it. Tell me, who would be safe and sound in the end? Without waiting for everyone to speak, Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and said, there's no need to think too much about it. It would definitely be elderly. Even if my martial arts are high, I can't stand against someone with even higher martial arts than me. Only those who don't plan to steal from the beginning have the chance to live in the end. Then does everyone know why elderly didn't steal it? Zhang Xiaohu asked again. Second brother doesn't lack money. If he wants to drink wine, someone will give it to him. Lu Qingyang shouted. Haha, Elder Lu is right. It's because elderly doesn't lack money and knows the consequences of taking the gold ingot that he stopped to consider whether he should take it or not. Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Maybe elderly saw that I was also coming to pick it up and didn't dare to take it. Exactly. Big gang leader is a person of the immortal Tao. This old man is no match for him. It's better to avoid him, Li Jian said with a smile. Then, what if the gold ingot was exchanged for the immortal mansion? Zhang Xiaohu suddenly said. This Li Jian was silent. Obviously, he wanted to steal it. But in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, this immortal mansion? Elderly, what do you think? If he were to steal it with you, what do you think your chances are? Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Elder Immortal's ability is not something I can guess. However, I don't even have a 5% chance. Li Jian was very honest. This is very obvious. Everyone, elderly has to consider the consequences of a gold ingot and won't rashly pick it up. But for an immortal mansion, elderly won't consider it at all. That's because the immortal mansion has exceeded elderly's expectations, or it can satisfy elderly's desire to set foot on the immortal Tao. So he doesn't care about the consequences. And Xiaohua is an expert of the immortal Tao. He treats the immortal mansion the same way elderly treats the gold ingot. He considers a lot. He knows that there are many experts like him, or even experts stronger than him who want to steal it. He doesn't dare to act rashly. An elderly doesn't know this. If he wants to steal it, the consequences will be the same as me stealing the gold ingot. But, didn't Elder Immortal say that he wants this immortal mansion? Hu Yuni asked curiously. That's because he didn't consider the previous matter. Now, he has considered it clearly and has already gone to the south to start his sect. Elder Immortal isn't going. If we go, wouldn't we be courting death? Du Feng and Ding Chao cried out in alarm. Isn't that so? Everyone should guard the villa tightly. Our Misty School has its own immortal Tao inheritance. As long as there's a chance, everyone will be able to set foot on the immortal Tao. There's no need to be confused by the scene in front of you, Zhang Xiaohu said. Moreover, our Misty School's calamity hasn't passed yet. Jingyi of Chuanxiang cult just sent a disciple to ask our Misty School's deputy gang leader Ming, or deputy gang leader Ing, to go to Yaoshan. They must have discovered the abnormality of our Misty School and sent someone to test us. We still have the energy to deal with this crisis. Yes, big gang leader, we will remember. Everyone bowed and saluted. That's right. Gang leader, an unknown voice rang out. If Elder Immortal comes across copper coins, silver ingots, and gold ingots, would he do the same as Elderly? Would he completely ignore them? This Zhang Xiaohu was really at a loss for words. He thought for a moment and laughed. This. Hee. When Xiaohua comes back, I'll ask him on your behalf. In the dark, Zhang Xiaohu pursed his lips and thought to himself. This. Do you still need to ask? Let alone gold ingots and silver ingots. He wouldn't even let go of a single copper coin. Far to the north of Yaoshan, Zhang Xiaohua, who had concealed himself in midair, was flying towards Pingyang City. He did not know that his second brother had already preached him to the Misty School's higher-ups as a role model. His attention was caught by the strange phenomenon in his divine perception. Evis. What's going on? Could it be that there's a fundamental change in the chi of heaven and earth? Why are there more and more of them? Moreover, this wind seems to be slightly warmer. It's far from the weather of autumn. No, this wind is obviously caused by the chi of heaven and earth. As the wind blows, the chi of heaven and earth is flowing in all directions. Could it be that there's something happening at Yaoshan again? Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He looked as far as he could, but he was still very far away from Yaoshan. Even though the ball of light above Yaoshan was 10 feet in size, Zhang Xiaohua still could not see it. Perhaps, should I hurry up a little bit? If there's something happening at Yaoshan, won't I miss it if I'm late? Zhang Xiaohua took a deep breath. His nose and mouth were filled with the freshness of the chi of heaven and earth. He formed a spell and flew towards Yaoshan at lightning speed. On the south side of Yaoshan, Hao Yunjinren raised his head and narrowed his eyes. From the west side of Yaoshan, 3 old monks wearing kasayas were flying towards them slowly. They were still far away, but the sound of chanting could be heard. It was as if they were right beside him. Hao Yunjinren glanced at Hao Yu and Hao Feng. Just as he was about to step forward, he heard a sharp voice. Fellow Taoist, you look very unfamiliar. How should I address you? Hao Yunjinren sucked in a breath of cold air, and turned his head again. He saw 2 old women with white hair, dressed in palace attire, flying towards them from the east side of Yaoshan. Dalan Temple's Master Yuandao, Master Yuanming, and Master Yuanwu. Priestess Xu Qing and Priestess Xu Jia. Between the clouds and the water, Hao Yunjinren, Hao Yu and Hao Feng. They had all gathered at Yaoshan. Apart from the Misty School, the remaining elders of the other 3 sects had all appeared at Yaoshan. When Taoist Hao Yu and Taoist Hao Feng saw this, they formed hand seals and also came to Taoist Hao Yun's side. The 3 of them looked at each other, and from each other's eyes that reflected a bloody light, they understood each other's intentions. Then the 3 of them stood back to back in the air, coldly looking at the people coming from the 2 directions. Unexpectedly, Master Yuandao and the others didn't immediately speak when they arrived in front of Hao Yu. Instead, they flew past them and directly arrived in front of Xu Qing and Xu Jia. Master Yuanwu put his palms together and said with an indescribable tone, "It's actually 2 nuns. How rare. I didn't think that after 30 years, I would still have the opportunity to meet you." Xu Jia also didn't hesitate. She swung the small whip in her hand, making a paw sound, and replied, "Of course. My priestess has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. We're not like some people who always talk about being merciful and saving the common people. Naturally, we have to live longer than others." "Oh, that's right, Master Yuandao. Don't you see that there are so many Jianghu juniors killing each other under your feet? You don't want to extend a hand and meddle? Even if you can save 1 or 2, you'll gain a lot of merit. It's much better than meddling in other people's affairs in the past." "Junior sister," Xu Qing berated from the side, but flew in front of Master Yuandao and said with a smile, "We haven't seen each other for many years. Have you been well, Master Yuandao? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote recommendation and monthly." Chapter 1162. Master Yuandao also flew past Master Yuanwu and landed in front of Nun Xu Qing. He bowed and said, "It's all right. How are the 2 of you?" "It's all right. It's just that the chi of heaven and earth has dried up. We're struggling at death's door, unable to rest in peace. Now that there's such an opportunity, we have to come and take a look. Could it be that the three masters have the same intention? Umitba, we're also mortals, struggling at death's door, unable to rest in peace. None. What are you doing here? What are we doing here? Hee, I didn't expect the enlightened monks of the Dalan temple to have such thoughts. No wonder, no wonder. That Master Yuandao was stunned and asked curiously. No wonder what? No wonder our sect master specifically told us to look at the big picture before we came. I've always been puzzled. Only when I saw the masters did I understand. None, you've said exactly what I'm thinking. Our abbot Chongsheng also told us the same thing. There's really nothing we can do. Master Yuanwu replied to Nun Shuqing. Nun Shuqing disagreed, and turned to look at Daoist Hao Yin and the others. She said, we seem to have neglected our friends from the Shundao sect. Daoist Hao Yin saw this and his body moved slightly, flying half a foot in the air. He cupped his hands and said, between the clouds and the water. Hao Yin greets my friends. Between the clouds and the water? Nun Shujie was stunned and immediately laughed. I thought it was some old friend, so it's actually the unknown between the clouds and the water. How laughable. Daoist Hao Yun's face was also ugly, showing slight anger. But after his fingers moved slightly, he relaxed and said with a fake smile. There used to be a so-called Shundao sect, but it was destroyed by our allies in the immortal Dao and no longer exists. Now there's only between the clouds and the water. Hee, there are many sects in the Jianghu. It's normal for them to be destroyed. Who would think about who destroyed them? Look at the Misty School. Didn't they return to the Jianghu and set foot on the immortal Dao? What? Someone from the Misty School set foot on the immortal Dao? Is it Junhui? Daoist Vast Wind asked in surprise. Junhui had fallen a long time ago. I don't even know when it happened. How could it be him? Nun Shuqing said disdainfully, then turned to ask Nun Shujie. Junior sister, it seems, when Junhui fell, Great Master Yuantian had already passed away. Tribulation Master Shu thought for a moment and nodded. That's right. Great Master Yuantian passed away early. He died from his injuries. Junhui forcefully broke through from martial arts into Dao and accidentally went mad. He ignited the true fire in his dantian and burned his internal organs to death. What a pity. The Dalan Temple still hasn't found the murderer. Who killed Great Master Yuantian? I wonder if Great Master Yuantian can rest in peace in the underworld. Umitba, Abbess has misspoken. My senior brother Yuantian's Buddhist Dharma is profound, his achievements complete. He went to the Western Paradise, not the Nine Springs. Grandmaster Yuanwu berated. Those who died unjustly can also go to the Western Paradise. Tribulation Master Shu said curiously. This, I still don't know. I'll have to trouble Grandmaster Yuanwu to give me some pointers. Grandmaster Yuanwu was furious. He shrugged his shoulders. An ray of light flew out from behind him. After flying several feet, it fell down again and hovered above Great Master Vast Wind's head. It was a broadsword that was several times wider than an ordinary sword. What? You can't win and you want to fight? Tribulation Master Shu sneered and waved the long whip in her hand. Tiny flower petals grew along with the whip and revolved around Tribulation Master Shu. Back then it was you who were meddlesome. You saved that person and made me unhappy. I chased him for 3,000 miles before killing him. Because of this, I had to wander outside for several years. When I returned to Lingering Fragrance Peak, I still had to be punished by the sect master. Now that I've met you, I want to talk to you, bald donkey. Ignorant witch, it was your fault in the first place, and you still want to push the blame onto others. If you didn't injure me, would my Buddhist Dharma be so many years later than senior brother? Come. I want to see the power of your incense cult's peach blossom whip. It's said that your demon punishing sword is also a famous magic weapon of the Dalan Temple. I want to experience it. Tribulation Master Shu's voice changed. Her long whip shook, and countless peach blossoms flashed with a bewitching red light and attacked Grandmaster Yuanwu. Junior sister Tribulation Master Shu Qing opened her mouth, but saw the peach blossoms already flashing. She then sighed and said, Junior sister, don't get angry. Also, don't forget the sect master's words. Our focus is still on the immortal mansion. You're serious? Yuanwu didn't expect Tribulation Master Shu to attack so suddenly. He was caught off guard. As he flew back, he reached into his pocket and took out a fist-sized alms bowl. He shook his hand and threw it into the air. The alms bowl flipped a few times in the air with its mouth facing down. Grandmaster Yuanwu made a hand seal and hit the alms bowl. With a schwa sound, a thin layer of Buddhist light was emitted from the alms bowl and tightly covered Yuanwu. At this time, countless tiny, peach blossom-shaped yuan qi balls hit the Buddhist light. With a series of pu-pu sounds, countless beautiful lights were shot out before they were annihilated. As for the Buddhist light, it was also slightly weakened. Seeing that the alms bowl's defense was effective, Yuanwu's heart calmed down. He put his index and middle fingers together and pointed above his head. The broadsword trembled and the tip of the sword went straight for Tribulation Master Shu's face. Good timing! Tribulation Master Shu shouted. She made a circle with the whip in her hand. The whip immediately turned into a thin thread and wrapped around the broadsword. Hee hee, you really dare! Grandmaster Yuanwu sneered. His index and middle fingers moved slightly again, as if he was using two fingers to form some kind of seal. Then he pointed forward again. With a bai sound, the broadsword suddenly emitted a radiance the length of a finger, rapidly piercing towards the long whip. In the blink of an eye, just as the light of the broadsword flashed, Shu Jie's long whip had already reached it. Pa pa pa. A series of explosive sounds rang out. The light of the broadsword instantly dimmed, and the long whip was about to wrap around the broadsword like silk. Not good. Yuanwu was shocked. He bent his fingers and the broadsword was like a clever little snake. The entire sword trembled and flew back. Ha ha ha. Bald donkey Yuanwu, now you know how powerful my fragrant religion is. Eat my whip. Tribulation Master Shu was not lenient. She did not retract the whip that had turned into a thin thread. Instead, she shook her wrist and several small circles formed by peach blossoms were formed. Following the trajectory of the whip, they spun rapidly and rushed towards Yuanwu. Why would this old monk be afraid of you? While Grandmaster Yuanwu was shocked, he formed hand seals and chanted a few mantras at the same time. The alms bowl hanging above his head shone brightly, protecting Yuanwu firmly. All of the peach blossoms hit that light screen, and were like pebbles hitting the water surface, causing ripples before disappearing into nothingness. Good bald donkey, you actually have this kind of method. This old one has underestimated you. Shu Jie seemed to be really angry as soon as the fight began. She waved her long whip and countless tiny peach blossoms appeared around her. However, this time, the peach blossoms did not escape from the long whip. Instead, with a pa sound, the long whip struck the brilliance sprinkled by the alms bowl. Although it struck the brilliance, it was the same as striking the alms bowl itself. The entire brilliance and the alms bowl shook a few times, almost extinguishing. Quick! Right at this moment, Grandmaster Yuanwu let out a shout like spring thunder. The broadsword that was still suspended in midair earlier, following the direction of his finger, flew swiftly with a whoosh, piercing towards Abbess Shu's throat. The broadsword was extremely fast, causing Tribulation Master Shu to be slightly startled. As she dodged, she shook the whip again, circling around her body. Countless peach blossoms appeared around Tribulation Master Shu's body, protecting her from harm. Tribulation Master Shu Qing stood at the side. Seeing that Tribulation Master Shu's attack and defense were orderly, she knew that there was no big problem for now. She cast her gaze towards Yuandao. Seeing this, Yuandao waved his hand. Umitba, Tribulation Master Shu Qing, could it be that you also want to test this old one's cultivation? Of course not. This old one has no grudges with your Dalan temple. There is no reason for me to fight here. Tribulation Master Shu Qing coldly said. That's good. Yuandao also let out a sigh of relief and smiled. Right now this old one still has some things to ask the Shundao sects. Oh no, fellow Taoist Hao Yin of Between the Clouds and the Water. Why don't Tribulation Master be my Dalan temple's witness? Ha ha ha, this old one has the same idea. Please. Tribulation Master Shu Qing did not hesitate and immediately said. Yuandao nodded and flew to the side. He arrived in front of Taoist Hao Yun and placed his palms together. He loudly said, "This old one has a question to ask fellow Taoist Hao Yun." "Grandmaster, please speak. I will tell you everything I know." Taoist Hao Yun returned the gesture. "Is that so?" Yuan Dao frowned and said, "I wonder, has fellow Taoist seen this old one's senior brother, Grandmaster Yuan Tian?" "Grandmaster Yuan Tian is the previous abbot of your Dalan temple. How could I not know?" Taoist Hao Yun was puzzled. "If you say you have seen him, then I have not. I have always been cultivating between the clouds and the water. I rarely ask about the matters of the sect or Jianghu." "Oh, is that so?" Yuan Dao said. "This old one seems to have seen fellow Taoist's magic tool from afar. It looks very similar to the magic tool that hit my senior brother Yuan Tian. I wonder if fellow Taoist can take it out for a look?" Taoist Hao Yun laughed. "What's so difficult about that?" Saying so, he stretched out his hand and took out an item from his bosom. He then opened his palm as if waiting for Yuan Dao to look. However, when Yuan Dao put his palms together and looked forward, Taoist Hao Yun waved his hand and threw it towards Yuan Dao's face. Following Taoist Hao Yun's hand gesture, a fiery red light pierced towards Yuan Dao's face with incomparable speed. Unfortunately, when the red light pierced Yuan Dao's face, Yuan Dao dodged to the side and dodged the light in a flash. Taoist Hao Yun was not surprised when he saw the light miss. He reached for his waist and a light red jade flute appeared in his hand. Then he shouted, "Go!" Following Taoist Hao Yun's command, Taoist Hao Yu and Taoist Hao Feng also did not say anything. Hao Yu took out a small hammer, and Hao Feng took out his lightning awl. From the other two sides, they pounced towards Yuan Dao. "Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip." Chapter 1163. The Three Great Masters of the Dalan Temple, Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming, and Yuan Wu. Reverend Yuan Wu had a grudge with Abbess Xu in his early years. As soon as they met, they fought to the point of no return. Looking at the overflowing sword chi and the numerous whip shadows over there, it was likely that they had already fought to their heart's content. It was impossible to determine the victor in a short time. Thus, only Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming were left. He chanted, "Umitba, this old monk is untalented and wants to avenge the dead senior Yuan Tian. Eat this old monk's move." The exorcism pestle in Master Yuan Dao's hand was different from what Zhang Xiaohua had seen. The exorcism pestle looked ordinary, but when Master Yuan Dao activated it with his dermic powers, a thin layer of Buddhist light surged out from the exorcism pestle. Although it was illuminated by the blood-red light, it was still pale white. Seeing the three from Aqua Cloud Club make their move, Grandmaster Yuan Ming did not dare to hesitate. He stretched out his hand and took out an item from his bosom, tossing it into the air. It was a bead the size of an egg. The bead was also strange. When it was thrown into the air, it was only the size of an egg and emitted a weak, pale white Buddhist light. However, when Master Yuan Ming cast a spell, the bead seemed to be blown by the wind. It spun in the air and expanded with the wind. The pale white Buddhist light was also resplendent, and the blood-red light could not be dyed. It actually opened up a space of 1 foot in the blood-red light. Grandmaster Yuan Ming's face was expressionless as he looked at the three people pouncing towards Grandmaster Yuan Dao. He pointed his finger, and the bead drew an arc in the air and smashed towards Taoist Hao Feng's head. Molu Pearl? When Taoist Hao Feng saw that the egg-sized bead had shrunk to the size of a wicker basket and emitted Buddhist light, he immediately revealed the origin of the bead. He sneered and said, "I heard that this bead is a famous Buddhist treasure of the Dalan Temple. I've never seen it before. I want to see if it lives up to its reputation." As he spoke, he raised the lightning awl in his hand and activated his magic power. He struck the awl out of thin air. The lightning awl let out a low rumbling sound that was close to the sound of thunder. A ball of bright light emerged from the awl and flew towards the Molu Pearl. When it flew closer, the ball of light suddenly dispersed and turned into hundreds of smaller balls of light. Between each of the balls of light, there were thin lines of light that connected them. It was like a net. At the same time, Taoist Vast Cloud brandished his Raging Flame flute. A ball of raging flame spurted out from the end of the flute. drawing an arc as it flew towards Grandmaster Yuan Dao's shoulder. Daoist Vast Moon was even more arrogant. He flew in the air and activated a small hammer in his hand with his magic power. He struck it towards Grandmaster Yuan Dao's head. With a thunderclap, a lightning-like brilliance emerged from the hammer and flew towards Grandmaster Yuan Dao. Good timing. Grandmaster Yuan Dao did not panic. He waved the demon-subduing pestle in his hand. The demon-subduing pestle that was as light as a feather immediately stirred up a wave of air. The rich heaven and earth yuan qi passed through the talismans carved on the demon-subduing pestle and made a soul-stirring sound as it swatted towards the raging flames. The raging flames that Daoist vast cloud struck out were the same as the sparks that burned Old Man Shang to death. However, it was made up of many sparks gathered together. At this moment, the heaven and earth yuan qi was abundant, and the raging flames gradually grew bigger. However, when the gust of wind from the demon-subduing pestle that was flickering with Buddhist light blew over, the raging flames were like ordinary flames flickering. Without waiting for the demon-subduing pestle to hit the raging flames, a light poof sounded and the raging flames were extinguished. At the same time that Daoist vast cloud struck the raging flames, Daoist Haoyu's lightning hammer also struck Grandmaster Yuan Dao's eyes. Lightning was known for its speed, and Daoist Haoyu's strike could be said to have arrived first, which was out of Grandmaster Yuan Dao's expectations. Fortunately, the demon-subduing pestle in Grandmaster Yuan Dao's hand was as light as a feather, and he casually waved it in front of his eyes to block it. Cha-cha-cha. A few blunt sounds rang out, as if a few blunt knives had struck an iron rod. The sound was enough to make one's teeth ache. Grandmaster Yuan Dao's body slightly trembled, and his arms also trembled as if he had exhausted all his strength. The demon-subduing pestle that was as heavy as a mountain also paused in the air, and the Buddhist light was also dimmed by the lightning. Daoist Haoyu was even more unbearable than Grandmaster Yuan Dao. Although he had only struck out the lightning was extinguished when it came into contact with the demon-subduing pestle. As for Daoist Haoyu, it was as if he had been struck by the demon-subduing pestle, and he flew back more than 3 feet. Seeing that the demon-subduing pestle's attack was effective, Grandmaster Yuan Dao was overjoyed, and he angrily shouted, "Attack!" Suddenly, Grandmaster Yuan Dao's eyes widened into the shape of an angry Vajra. His slightly stooped body suddenly expanded, causing his monk's robe to flutter. His arm that was holding the demon-subduing pestle also became much thicker. The demon-subduing pestle regained its radiance after receiving Grandmaster Yuan Dao's power. With a wave of the demon-subduing pestle, the Buddhist light flashed in the air, and it rubbed against the dense spiritual energy of the world, creating bursts of explosive sounds. The sounds rang out continuously, and the demon-subduing pestle charged towards Daoist Haoyu. Daoist Haoyu was 3 feet away, and had just stabilized his body. He looked at the demon-subduing pestle in amazement. Indeed, he never thought that the demon-subduing pestle would have such power in Grandmaster Yuan Dao's hands. Unconsciously, he became angry and shouted, "The Dalan Temple is only so. Watch as I destroy you." After saying that, he clenched his teeth and poured the spiritual energy in his meridians into the lightning hammer. With a flash, a shadow twice the size of the lightning hammer appeared around the lightning hammer. Daoist Haoyu held the lightning hammer and waved it extremely slowly, as if the lightning hammer was extremely heavy. The shadow was also driven by the lightning hammer, and it drew a string of afterimages in the air. When the lightning hammer stopped, the shadow left the lightning hammer, and with a slight whimper, it faced the demon-subduing pestle head-on. Pung with a series of chaotic sounds, the demon-subduing pestle's wave of energy was broken by the shadow of the lightning hammer. It rose several feet, and the surrounding spiritual energy of the world became chaotic. At the same time, a 5-colored brilliance flashed, and the shadow of the lightning hammer was also broken by the demon-subduing pestle. It turned into countless tiny specks of light, and with extreme brilliance, it dissipated in the air. "Great Master Yuan Dao, be careful," Nun Shuqing's voice sounded. Great Master Yuan Dao was startled. Just now, he used all his strength to wave the demon-subduing pestle, and put all his attention on Daoist Haoyu. He neglected Daoist Haoyun, whose flames were destroyed by him. Without looking back, Great Master Yuandao's divine sense swept out, and he was slightly startled. He saw that the raging flame flute in Taoist Hao Yun's hand was now very close to him. It was like a live loach, and it swam to his back. Taoist Hao Yun was not in a hurry when he heard Nun Shuqing's shout to expose his sneak attack. He only made a hand seal, and his fingers moved slightly. A faint red brilliance suddenly shot out from the raging flame flute, and quickly pierced into Great Master Yuandao's back. The faint red brilliance in the bloody night sky was very dark. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see that it was actually an extremely thin fire needle. Amitabha Buddha. Great Master Yuandao was slightly angry. He chanted Buddha's name, and his whole body flashed. A Buddha's light appeared on his body, and after a few flashes, it disappeared again. Chi. The fire needle pierced into the Buddha's light on Great Master Yuandao's body. It was like snow touching fire, and gradually melted. Hee. Taoist Hao Yun sneered. His left hand secretly made a hand seal for a long time, and suddenly, a faint cold light appeared in the middle of the melting fire needle. A black needle that was even thinner than the previous light needle pierced into the Buddha's light. It was different from the previous light needle. This black needle was very eye-catching in the Buddha's light. Pa! The Buddha's light was like a bubble, and the black light disappeared. The black light directly pierced into Great Master Yuandao's chest. Taoist Hao Yun was overjoyed when he saw this. His fingers moved slightly, as if he was controlling the black needle. But this joy only lasted for a moment, and his face revealed a slight surprise. Good thief. Great Master Yuandao's words were like spring thunder, and he angrily said, "You are really bold. Even if senior brother Yuandao died, it was under such a sinister hidden weapon. How could this old man not notice? You actually used this kind of method. Are you really confessing without being pressed? Quickly return my senior brother Yuandao's life." As he spoke, Grandmaster Yuandao took out his left hand that had been hidden in his monk robe. He held a purple and green box in his hand. The lid of the box had already been opened, and two green and purple lights formed a ring that flowed inside the box. Taoist Master Hao Yun's black needle that was so thin that it couldn't be seen was floating in the ring of light, slightly rotating. Heaven and Earth box? Taoist Hao Yun sucked in a breath of cold air. This is a legendary item. You can even find it in the Dalan Temple. I really admire you. If it wasn't to break your mystic bone needle, my Dalan Temple wouldn't have to spend so much effort to search the entire Jianghu. Unfortunately, I found it too late. I couldn't save my senior brother Yuandao's life. As he spoke, a thunderclap sounded. A light as thin as a gossamer appeared at the back of Great Master Yuandao's neck, and directly wrapped around his neck. How dare you? An old female voice sounded. Then, countless tiny white lotuses appeared around Great Master Yuandao's body, blocking that fatal light. When Great Master Yuandao turned around, he saw Taoist Hao Yu holding the lightning hammer. His face was gloomy, and his gaze was fixed on his left side. On the left side of Great Master Yuandao, Senior Nun Shuqing was holding a small white triangular flag. On the flag, there were countless white clouds that were as thin as cotton. They were lifelike, and when the flag fluttered, they seemed to have escaped from the flag, the plain cloud white flag. Taoist Hao Yu sighed. The incense sect really lives up to its name. This is an ancient divine item. My Shindao sect searched for so many years, but we couldn't find it. Unexpectedly, you guys found it. The Shindao sect is also extraordinary. The ancient divine items, the lightning awl and the lightning hammer, were all obtained by your Shindao sect. I wonder, is the heaven-shaking drum in your hands? Before Senior Nun Shuqing finished speaking, an earth-shattering sound from the side interrupted her. Chapter 1164. Speaking of which, in the air below Yao Mountain, the battle was divided into 3 areas. The one closest to Yao Mountain was the Dalan Temple's Master Yuanwu and Abbess Shu of the Fragrance Cult. Due to accumulated grievances in their early years, they wielded their magic tools to fight. One used the Dalan Temple's famous weapon, the demon-slaying sword, while the other used the Fragrance Cult's inheritance, the Peach Blossom Whip. The two of them fought enthusiastically, urging their magic power to maximize the power of the magic tools in their hands. The demon-slaying sword was more than twice its usual size. Talismans faintly flowed on the sword, flashing with different splendor. The splendor radiated to the edge of the broadsword, turning into a faint Buddhist light. This Buddhist light was like a burning flame, growing by a lot. Looking at Abishu's peach blossom whip, it was no longer a small whip. The entire whip was made of peach blossoms, rolling along the whip from time to time. The whip swam in the air, reflecting the color of blood. It was like a blood-red python, incomparably fierce, causing one's heart to tremble. Although Master Yuanwu and Abishu were peak figures in the late stage of qi refinement, and were also famous experts in the immortal puppet era, they had never seen such dense heaven and earth energy in their lives, nor had they ever urged the magic tools in their hands to such power. Although the demon-slaying sword and peach blossom whip couldn't compare to ancient divine tools like the clear sky mirror and lightning hammer, they were still magic tools used by Yu Mingxin and Wan Wuxin. Therefore, in the hands of the two experts in the immortal puppet era, it was really a bit like casting pearls before swine. Therefore, seeing such dense heaven and earth energy that was almost like the ancient immortal Tao recorded in ancient books, and the magic tools in their hands also exerting power beyond their imagination, the two of them couldn't control their emotions. And they really felt that their magic power had increased a lot compared to before, and their divine abilities had also improved by several levels. Therefore, when they used it, they also felt extremely inflated, as if they were walking on the edge of a cliff. If they weren't careful, they would lose control of their magic power. Looking at Master Yuanwu, he waved the demon-slaying sword, holding it in his hand like a door knife, directly chopping down. It was an absolute martial art technique. As for Abishu, she even forgot to form the incantation, and only held the main body of the peach blossom whip. With a swoosh, she pulled it out. With a loud rumble, the main body of the demon-slaying sword collided with the main body of the peach blossom whip. The peach blossoms were like splashing waves, flying to various places in the air, and the demon-slaying sword also disappeared in an instant, turning into a sword that was much shorter than an ordinary sword, slowly flying towards Master Yuanwu. However, if it was only the collision of these two magic weapons, it wouldn't be enough to attract the attention of Master Yuandao and Master Shu Qing. At the same time that the demon-slaying sword collided with the peach blossom whip, the Dalan Temple's Master Yueming's Molu Pearl was like a round moon that was hidden in the sky, suddenly expanding, absorbing all of Master Yueming's magic power in one go. The expansion far exceeded Master Yuanming's imagination. Master Yuanming was excited, and the incantation between his fingers became more and more obscure. This obscurity revealed his unfamiliarity, and he almost couldn't control it. The Molu Pearl was like a shooting star chasing after the sun, and with a swoosh, it struck towards Master Taoist Hao Feng's lightning all. Master Taoist Hao Feng was shocked. How could he resist such a terrifying power with his current cultivation? Looking at the lightning all in his hand, Master Taoist Hao Feng gritted his teeth, and immediately let go of it, spitting out a mouthful of blood onto the lightning all. After absorbing Master Taoist Hao Feng's blood essence, the lightning all shrank instead of expanding, until it shrank to about half of its original size. Then it flew in the air, and like a phoenix nodding its head, slightly trembled 3 times, and 3 layers of thin lightning flashed, wrapping around the Molu Pearl. Unfortunately, these 3 layers of lightning were still unable to stop the Molu bead's attack. With 3 puff 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 sounds, the Molu bead pierced through 3 glistening holes in the lightning net, and directly struck the body of the lightning all. And this collision coincidentally happened at the same time as the demon punishing sword and the peach blossom whip. The sound that filled the sky was truly earth-shattering. Not only did Grandmaster Yuandao and Senior Nun Shu Jing cast sidelong glances, their figures slightly dodging. Their spiritual senses and eyes all looked over. Even the people under everyone's feet, whose heart meridians were already controlled by the wung-wung sound of the beating drum, woke up from their stupor. They looked at the 2 immortal Dao experts fighting in the air with strange gazes. Grandmaster Yuandao wielding the demon-punishing sword, and Senior Nun Shu Jing wielding the peach blossom whip, were in a more wretched state. Their bodies were greatly trembling, their arms were trembling, and their meridians were trembling as they fell to the ground. As for Grandmaster Yuan Dao, who controlled the Molu Pearl, and Taoist Hao Feng, who controlled the Lightning All, were slightly better off. However, their figures were also staggering, traces of blood seeping out of their mouths and noses. This was the backlash from controlling the immortal Dao artifacts. When the earth-shattering sound was heard, the blood-red brilliance in the air above Yao Mountain became even more intense. It was like a pool filled with blood, causing people to feel a burst of vexation in their hearts. It was completely different from the 7 colors in the air above Yao Mountain before. Following the collision of the 4 immortal Dao artifacts, that brilliance also suddenly emitted an even more resplendent brilliance. It was as if something had squeezed its way in. That brilliance strengthened by more than 30%, but these 3 layers were increasingly bloodstained. Jie ga, a soft sound was heard, followed by Senior Nun Shu Jie's miserable cry. Ah, who are you? That change suddenly appeared when everyone was looking at the brilliance in the air. When Senior Nun Shu Qing turned her gaze back to Senior Nun Shu Jie, Senior Nun Shu's body that had fallen to the ground had already stabilized. An incomparably fast black shadow leapt out from the crowd of Jianghu disciples who were gradually coming to a stop on the ground. Like an arrow leaving a bow, it shot straight towards Senior Nun Shu. In front of the black shadow, there was also a black long sword that still emitted a bright light amidst the blood-red light, stabbing towards Senior Nun Shu's back. That was not the end of the change. As Senior Nun Shu screamed, an angry roar sounded at the same time. Who are you? Beside Master Yuan Ming, who had landed on the ground, there was also a black shadow. Like the sneak attack on Master Yuan Ming, it silently attacked Master Yuan Ming's back. Master Yuan Ming was very alert. When he saw Senior Nun Shu Jie panicking, he immediately formed a spell. The Momo Pearl that was sent flying backwards immediately flew in front of him. A Buddhist light sprinkled down, protecting him completely. Ha ha ha. Master Yuan Dao, who was alerted by the 2 screams, was not alarmed but laughed instead. He flew forward and stood in the middle of the crowd. Senior Nun Shu Qing also had a smile on her face. She flew to Master Yuan Dao's side and waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand. Countless pure white tiny lotus flowers enveloped everyone in the air. She laughed loudly and said, "Fellow Taoists of the Tenryu sect, we've been waiting for you for a long time." The 2 black shadows that attacked Senior Nun Shu Jie and Master Yuan Ming were stunned. They immediately understood that they had fallen into a trap. The 2 of them looked at each other. One of them went straight up, while the other fell down, wanting to land among the Jianghu people on the ground again. Hee, since you're all here, why are you in such a hurry to leave? As Master Yuan Dao spoke, he waved the demon-subduing pestle in his hand and slammed it towards the Tenryu sect disciple who was flying up. When the demon-subduing pestle hit him, the Tenryu sect disciple's body twisted. In a trance, he left behind an afterimage while his body moved forward another 5 feet. Sakura? Master Yuan Dao's pupils shrank. He seemed to be shocked by the black shadow's levitation technique. As for the black shadow that fell to the ground, although no one chased after him, when his body landed on the layers of white lotuses, he could no longer descend. He could only stand there awkwardly. Is it Garuda? Senior Nun Shu Qing also couldn't confirm. She could only shout in a low voice. At this moment, although Senior Nun Shu Jie and Master Yuan Wu were about to land on the ground, they had already stabilized their bodies. The peach blossom whip and demon-slaying sword in their hands were above their heads. Their faces were filled with pride. Apart from them, all the other masters of the Dalan Temple and the nuns of the incense sect seemed to know what was going on. Only Hao Yin, Hao Yu, and Taoist Hao Feng of Between the Clouds and the Water had a certain expression on their faces. They seemed to be rather ashamed. Sakura, this old monk has been preparing for a long time. I've been waiting for this moment. If you didn't want to launch a sneak attack, you might not have fallen into my sect's trap. Grandmaster Yuan Dao smiled. At this time, Abbess Shu Jie, Abbess Shu Jing, Grandmaster Yuan Dao, Grandmaster Yuan Ming, and Grandmaster Yuan Wu were using a mysterious formation to trap the 2 shadows of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Taoist Hao Feng's figure also landed below. He looked at the two black-clothed men of the Tenryu sect who were surrounded. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a person laugh shrilly. Even if we were to fight one-on-one, you might not be a match for us. Who would care about your ambush? That voice was indeed the leader of the Tenryu sect, Sakura. Moreover, that voice was still graceful, as if he wasn't nervous at all. It was indifferent, as if he was talking to a common friend. Hehe, Lord Sakura, if we didn't have this ambush, would you dare to come forward? The person who said this was Master Yuan Dao. His words were true. Sakura was the most powerful person in the world. His cultivation was supported by the secret technique of the Tenryu sect. Not everyone could resist him. However, when faced with Master Yuan Dao, Senior Nun Shuqing, and the others, he might not be able to win in a single battle. Moreover, the Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect were gathered here. Even if the Tenryu sect appeared, they might not be able to win. How can you guess what I'm doing? This kind of boring array formation of yours is nothing more than a small trick to this seat. Di Shirtian smiled and extended his body. Like a sparrow hawk soaring into the sky, he charged towards the ground diagonally. The Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect seemed to have a tacit understanding. The five of them should be using some kind of formation. When Sakura moved, Senior Nun Shuqing and Master Yuan Wu also moved. The two of them approached Sakura's back. The two of them made a hand gesture, and the Peach Blossom Whip and Demon Slayer sword that had gone out of control earlier instantly shrunk to an extremely small size. They attacked Sakura's shoulders from both sides. At the same time, Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming attacked together. The demon subduing pestle, and the Mao Pearl attacked the other Tenryu sect's shadow from above and below. You, that shadow exclaimed. He had just dodged the demon subduing pestle, and was blown by the hurricane brought about by the demon subduing pestle. Before he could stabilize himself, the Mao Pearl hit his back. Instantly, a ray of colorful light flashed on the shadow's back. That shadow directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was hit by the Mao Pearl and rolled a few times in the air. Chapter 1165. Seeing that Sakura was being attacked by the demon punishing sword and the peach blossom whip from both sides, Sakura saw that the situation was not good and quickly changed his position. Although his Imperial Wind technique was marvelous, it couldn't stop the Dalan Temple and incense cult from scheming. They were afraid that the Tenryu sect would attack them halfway and set up an ambush here. Dodging now was already within Master Yuan Wu's expectations. When Sakura barely dodged the demon punishing sword, Master Yuan Wu sneered and moved closer to Calamity Shu. He pinched a spell in his hand, and the true chi in his meridians flowed towards the demon punishing sword. The demon punishing sword expanded a bit and became more powerful than before. Sakura dodged the demon punishing sword, but his body didn't escape from the peach blossom whip. A burst of peach blossom fluttered and blood could be seen on Sakura's right shoulder. A series of blood drops oozed out from Sakura's back and dripped into the air. Seeing that Sakura was injured, Tribulation Master Shu was overjoyed. Following the changes in the array, she also moved closer to Master Yuan Wu. The two of them crossed each other. The demon punishing sword flashed with a cold light and directly slashed towards Sakura's back. Meanwhile, the peach blossom whip also slightly moved and lashed at the other person's chest. Not only that, the Mao bead suddenly became smaller and became multicolored. Like a frightened little bird, it shot towards Sakura's chest. Under Master Yuan Dao's control, the demon subduing pestle suddenly became slender and became heavier when it was waved. It was like a pale white rainbow, and with a schwa sound, it slammed towards another man in black from the Tenryu sect. What a pity! Sakura and the other man in black from the Tenryu sect actually didn't have the strength to fight back under the siege of 5 people. Sakura had just dodged the demon punishing sword when the peach blossom whip hit his back. When the peach blossom whip hit his body, Sakura spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body seemed to be flashing with multicolored brilliance. His entire body flipped and fell into the air. The other person was even more miserable as he was hit by the Mao bead. The Mao bead flashed and suddenly pierced through the man in black's chest. That man in black didn't scream, and his broken body also fell to the ground. Ha ha ha. Great Master Yuandao roared, Sakura, Sakura, you are the number one person in the world and you actually fell into our trap. Hand over your life. After saying that, he formed a seal in his hand, and that demon-subduing pestle actually turned into a flying sword and pierced towards Sakura's back. At this crucial moment, Abbess Yuanwu, Abbess Shujie, Abbess Yuanming, and Abbess Shuqing were full of excitement. They didn't even blink as they wanted to see how the number one person in the world would die under the demon-subduing pestle. But all of a sudden, an abnormality occurred again. Ha ha ha. A piercing laugh that shook the heavens rose from beside Abbess Shujie and Master Yuanwu. Shit, just as Grandmaster Shujie and Grandmaster Endo had the same thought. A sharp pain rose from their chests at the same time. The two of them lowered their heads, only to see a fist as black as ink penetrating their backs and coming out from their chests. Shock appeared in their eyes as they looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they spat out blood from their noses and mouths. Their eyes were filled with grayish-black color. Following that arm disappeared from their chests and their bodies fell from midair. That demon-punishing sword and peach blossom whip immediately dimmed and gradually shrunk. They slowly returned to their original appearance and then quietly floated in the air. Junior brother, Abbess Yuandao exclaimed. Junior sister, Abbess Shuqing also cried out loudly. Following Abbess Yuandao's exclamation, Abbess Yuanming woke up and roared angrily. His figure rapidly flew towards where Abbess Yuanwu had fallen. Abbess Shuqing also did the same. Without hesitation, she waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand, and a pile of lotus flowers appeared, piling up below Abbess Shujie's fallen body. She also immediately flew over. The five people's array formation instantly fell apart. Following their cries, that black shadow that was standing behind Abbess Shujie and Abbess Yuanwu gradually appeared. This black shadow's two hands clenched into fists, one on the left and one on the right. Both of them penetrated the bodies of the two people. His arms were stained with blood as he slowly retracted them. You are the Sakura? Abbess Yuandao flew in midair and was abnormally shocked. Following that, he clenched his teeth and stopped his hand seals. The long sword formed by the demon-subduing pestle sped up by 30%. With a flash of light, it was about to pierce the back of the Sakura. Unfortunately, at this moment, the Sakura who had just appeared stretched out his hand. A gust of black gas appeared and pulled the previous Sakura to the side. The demon-subduing pestle naturally missed its target. With a pu sound, it pierced that person's left arm and easily chopped off his entire arm. With a miserable cry, the Sakura, who had fallen to the ground, staggered a few times. He still couldn't stand steadily, and with a plop, he fell to the ground. Gag. Of course I'm the Sakura. Who else would pretend to be me? The last one to appear, Sakura laughed sinisterly. He didn't remove the cloak that covered his face. Your Dalan Temple still hasn't given up on your evil intentions. You actually still want to plot against my Tenryu sect? There's also the Aroma cult. You only have 2 surviving abbesses, and you still want to rely on the Dalan Temple's scheme. If you don't pay the price, how would you know my Tenryu sect's methods? Sakura sneered. When you guys were fighting with the 3 people from the Shindao sect, I already saw the clues. You actually still wanted to set a trap? The grudge between Yuanwu and Shujie is too childish. Next time, you have to be more careful when setting up a trap. The 3 spiritual masters between the clouds and the water were extremely embarrassed. Seeing that they were being used as chess pieces by the people from the 3 sects, they didn't know what to say. Sakura spoke again. I'm the number 1 person in the world. You guys are old, and your beauty is waning. It's better to die early. As he spoke, Sakura waved his hand. The people who had stopped fighting on the ground and were looking up at the disciples of the various sects in the air. Suddenly, a few people flew out and were about to fly away. You. Who are you? All of a sudden, Sakura also exclaimed, followed by a series of screams. His entire body flew out and directly flew into the air. A jade-like hand was inserted into Sakura's back. This not only the 3 spiritual masters between the clouds and the water. Even Nun Shuqing, who was holding Nun Shujie in her arms, was extremely shocked. Only Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming of the Dalan Temple didn't have too much of an expression other than grief and indignation. Sakura was indeed amazing, worthy of being called the #1 person in the world. After he exclaimed, he threw his left hand and a black fog rose behind him. The person who was inserted into Sakura's back didn't hesitate. His thin and small body immediately pulled up and flew high above everyone's heads. His eyes were hale and hearty as he looked at the black fog and the gradually disappearing figure of Sakura. He sighed secretly, following the disappearance of Sakura's figure. The few black shadows that had just flown away from the ground were also stunned. Just as they were about to change their positions, they heard the thin and small body shout angrily, "Attack!" Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming's demon subduing pestle and mola beads struck out like meteors. They had planned this for a long time, and the people of the Tenryu sect were caught off guard. Among them, 2 people were already hit by the 2 magic weapons. Their figures staggered and fell into the dust like falling leaves. However, just as their figures landed on the ground, several people beside them pinched the jade talisman in their hands, and several clouds of black smoke rose. The people in the air, the people on the ground, and the heavily injured Sakura, and the others all disappeared without a trace. This Taoist master Hao Yun and the others were dumbstruck as they watched the series of unforeseen events in the sky. They suddenly felt that they were nothing more than a supporting role in this grand event. Boundless sorrow rose in their hearts. Until Master Yuandao flew into the air, he put his palms together and saluted in an unusual offensive manner. He said, "Disciple greets Master Tiangang." The 3 people suddenly realized and didn't dare to be negligent. They flew in front of that thin and small monk and said with lowered brows, "Disciple, Shindao Sect's Hao Yun, Hao Yu Haofeng greets Dalan Temple's Master Tiangang." That thin and small monk wasn't anyone else, but the old monk that Zhang Xiaohua saw in the Dalan Temple's sutra depository. Old monk Tiangang was expressionless as he waved his hand and said, Umitba, don't be so courteous." This old monk never thought that the Shindao sect actually had such a powerful inheritance. In the future, I'm afraid that the 3 sects of the immortal Tao are going to stand on equal footing. Master Tiangang Nun Shujing was extremely sorrowful. She carried Nun Shujia's body. She had long lost all signs of life. Master Yuanming was the same. He carried Master Yuanwu's body and said sorrowfully, "Master, junior brother Yuanwu, Master, please be merciful." Umitba, life and death are fated. Riches and honor are in heaven. The 2 of them died because of Sakura. This poor monk also has no power to reverse the situation. What can I do? Master Yuandao's eyes were filled with sorrow and said, "Master, it's all disciples' fault for being foolish and arranging such a flawed plan to capture Sakura, and the rest in one fell swoop. Unexpectedly real and illusory and real. We laid down a maze for Sakura, and Sakura was also laying down a maze for us. Who would know who was in whose maze?" Master Tiangang sighed and said, "Not only you, even this old monk. Sigh, I was also bewitched by Sakura and thought that you guys were already captured easily, and didn't need this old monk to make a move. Therefore, I actually let martial nephew Yuanwu and Nun Shujia fall. This is truly this old monk's fault." Immediately after, Master Tiangang chanted the name of Buddha again and said, "However, subduing demons and devils is a righteous act. Using violence to exchange violence will inevitably have a price. Martial nephew Yuanwu met the calamity with his own body. This can be considered as obtaining what you asked for and not wasting your life's cultivation. With this merit, you will definitely be buried in the Origin Returning Tower and achieve eternal fame." Yes, Master is extremely right. Umitba. Master Yuandao put his palms together and said softly. Only Nun Shuqing opened her mouth and looked at Nun Shujia's body that was gradually turning cold. She gritted her teeth and raised her head to look at the peach blossom whip floating in midair. With a wave of her hand, the peach blossom whip flew into Nun Shuqing's hand. Nun Shuqing didn't even look at the crowd and flew straight to the east side of Mountain Yao. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Com to vote recommendation and monthly. Chapter 1166. Umitba. Seeing Xuqing Nun fly away without saying goodbye, Master Tiangang sighed. I'm afraid Nun misunderstood. Master Yuandao disagreed. Master, don't think too much. Our Dalan temple is the same as her incense sect. We both lost one person. What's there to misunderstand? We just didn't tell them about the plan to ambush Sakura. This is also to keep it a secret. We can't let the Tenryu sect know about it beforehand. Forget it. Master Tiangang waved his hand. Let's not talk about incense sect. It's a pity that we didn't manage to kill Sakura even after sacrificing 2 lives. We only managed to injure him severely. However, we took the lives of 3 heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect and cut off one of Garuda's arms. Yes, this is all thanks to Master Tiangong's calculation ability. Master Yuandao said respectfully. Master Tiangang looked at Yao Mountain and shook his head. Origin returning tribulation. Origin returning tribulation. Only by killing as many people as possible can you save your own life. If you show any mercy, you can only let others take your life. It's midnight. The immortal mansion hasn't appeared yet? Grandmaster Tiangang looked at the gradually dimming bloody light above Yao Mountain and murmured. We haven't even seen a corner of the immortal mansion. Yet so many people have already lost their lives. If the immortal mansion is born, who knows how many more people will die? Excellent, excellent. Master Tiangang flew towards the west. Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming carried Master Yuanwu's corpse and left as well. Hao Yun and the other 2 perfected masters stood in the air for a long time. They looked at each other and nodded slightly. Then, they flew down and entered the tent, on the southern side of Yao Mountain. The martial artists who had lost their minds under the blood-red brilliance had long been shocked by the earth-shattering sounds and the unimaginable supernatural powers when they were fighting with the immortals in midair. They all looked up and watched with envy. As they stopped fighting, and the blood-red sky above Yao Mountain began to dim, the fighting around Yao Mountain gradually came to a stop. At this point, everyone gradually came to their senses. Perhaps it was because they were tired, or perhaps they felt that it was still too early to make a move. They had already stopped attacking and were only vigilantly guarding their surroundings, no longer rashly attacking. But the battle just now was so cruel. Every blade cut into flesh and every sword took a life. It was not an exaggeration to say that blood flowed like a river and corpses floated for miles. In just a short while, 4 out of the tens of thousands of Jianghu people had died in the chaos. Countless amounts of blood flowed out from these people's bodies and seeped into the ground, without a trace. Looking at the current Yao Mountain, the basket-sized ball of light in the air had already expanded to a radius of 30 feet. The blood-red color of the ball of light had gradually dimmed and was replaced by a faint rainbow color. It was the same color as the one that had appeared in the air above Yao Mountain. This everyone, including Nun Jingyi, was shocked to see Xu Jie's body. She was one of the top masters in Jianghu. How could she die so easily? However, when they heard about the thrilling battle just now and the battle of wits between the Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect, everyone was speechless. The Dalan Temple's plan to ambush the Tenryu sect was something that Master Changsheng had discussed with Nun Jingyi. Previously, during the Wulin assembly of the incense cult, Nun Jingyi already had a deep fear of Sakura's cultivation. If there was a chance to join forces with the Dalan Temple to get rid of Sakura, Nun Jingyi would definitely not let go of it. However, she did not expect that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Nun Jingyi did not expect that Sakura had long planned this and took advantage of the situation to injure both the Dalan Temple and the incense cult. This was not all. What Nun Jingyi did not expect was that Master Tiangang of the Dalan Temple was actually still alive in this world. He actually participated in this and actually became the shepherd boy who hunted the oriole. However, since Master Tiangang could become the shepherd boy, then he would definitely be able to mess up the entire situation before the oriole pecks at the mantis. This way, Master Tiangang would not be able to injure Sakura and kill the 3 heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect, but Master Yuanwu of the Dalan Temple and Xu Jie of the incense cult would not die. Thinking about it this way, Master Tiangong's goal was really thought-provoking. Nun Jingyi immediately became alert. While arranging for the outer disciples to go to the nearest town to buy coffins, she also pulled Nun Xuqing, Nun Xuezhen, Peacock and the rest to discuss through the night. Not only were the disciples of the incense cult discussing countermeasures, the campsites of the Dalan temple, between the clouds and the water and the alliance of the righteous sects were also brightly lit. Not a single person was resting. It was as if the changes in the strength of the various sects and the response to the appearance of the immortal mansion were all in full swing. The only thing that did not change was that the ball of light in the sky above Yao Mountain was gradually expanding. By the time the stars had faded and the moon had set, the east was already showing the color of a fish's belly. The ball of light had already expanded to the size of 1 li. At this moment, the people of the Jianghu who were waiting at the foot of Yao Mountain had already seen it clearly. This was not some passage to the immortal realm, nor was it some legendary magical treasure of the immortal path. It was indeed a towering, simple and unadorned ancient hall that was surrounded by immortal clouds. As for the expanding ball of light, it was the outline of the hall that was gradually revealed when it appeared from the void. At this moment, it was as if an invisible hand was slowly lifting the veil that covered the face of the hall. Bit by bit, the proud face of the hall was revealed in the sky above Yao Mountain. Speaking of which, it was strange. Earlier at night, the blood-red brilliance shone and the hall was revealed extremely slowly. But when dawn came and the brilliance changed to 7 colors, the speed at which the hall appeared seemed to be much faster than at night. By the time the rising sun shone on the hall in the sky, more than half of the hall had already been revealed from the void. In the distant sky to the south of Yao Mountain, Zhang Xiaohua concealed her body and flew forward rapidly. She used her naked eyes to look at the 7-colored brilliance of the hall that reflected the sunlight. She could not help but feel jealous. The immortal mansion that even Wan Wuxing covets is really a treasure. It's a pity that it appeared at the wrong time. My beta school has not yet been established, and there are only 7 disciples who have not achieved anything. If it had appeared hundreds or thousands of years later, even if I'm not here, my disciples would have the strength to fight for the immortal mansion. But now, sigh, I can only go to the side and watch the show. Zhang Xiaohua, who was trying to steal while she was at it, had already landed far away. After changing her appearance, she held a jujube wooden stick in her hand and rode a fine horse that she had gotten from God knows where. She followed the official road and headed towards Yao Mountain. Earlier, when she was flying in the sky, Zhang Xiaohua did not notice the situation on the ground. But now, she was surprised to find that there were not many people on the official road. Occasionally, there would be a few brave people who heard the sound of a horse's hooves. Before they could even turn around to see who it was, they would immediately jump off the official road and run away in a hurry, as if they were afraid of being seen by Zhang Xiaohua. This Zhang Xiaohua did not understand at first, but then she slowly figured it out. Most of the people in Jianghu were arrogant and unruly. They were not people who followed the rules. Now that they were all gathered near Yao Mountain, how could there not be a tragedy of the weak being eaten by the strong? Presumably, this kind of thing had become a common occurrence on the official road. Although this place was still very far from Yaoshan, and there were no Jianghu people on the official road, but, once bitten by a snake, 10 years shy of ropes. This was unavoidable. Sai Zhang Xiaohua sighed and could not help but feel emotional. When people in Jianghu saw the strong bullying the weak, most people would sympathize with the weak. But, when these weak people in Jianghu saw the poor people, could they still maintain a humble attitude and conduct? The answer was extremely uncertain. Even Zhang Xiaohua himself could not give a clear answer. Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought. After riding for more than 4 hours, they finally arrived at the foot of Yao Mountain. There was still some distance to Yao Mountain, but there were already many Jianghu people. There were even many Jianghu sects who had spontaneously formed teams and set up checkpoints on the official road, and by the side of the mountain to prevent idle people from entering. It was not clear whether they were trying to prevent the innocent villagers from dying, or to prevent the disciples of other sects from entering. Zhang Xiaohua did not want to waste time with them. She hit the people who were blocking her with her cudgel and flew into the air. In a flash, she fell into the crowd and disappeared without a trace. At this time, it was already past noon. The early winter sun shone warmly on everyone's bodies. If it was any other day, they would definitely have crossed their arms. Perhaps they would even squat down and talk with smiles. However, at this time, everyone was holding weapons in their hands. Their eyes were fiery as they stared at the sky. Occasionally, they would even turn their eyes as they carefully observed their surroundings. Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground. In a flash, she disappeared into the crowd. Then, like the others, she found a big tree and jumped up half a branch. Then, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and looked at the main hall in the sky above Yao Mountain. She released her divine sense slightly. Then Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She thought to herself, as expected of an immortal mansion, this Yao Mountain, the vital energy of heaven and earth is very rich. If any disciple wants to absorb vital energy into their body and set foot on the path of immortality, it will be a good opportunity. However, when he sniffed the air, he was stunned. Apart from the freshness of the vital qi of heaven and earth, there was also a thick stench of blood. Oh my God, I'm scared. Have many people died? Zhang Xiaohua was still some distance away from the foot of Yao Mountain. Moreover, the corpses that had been killed by the crowd last night had already been taken care of. That blood had seeped into the ground. Apart from the smell of blood in the air, it was really impossible to see the terrible scene last night. However, about 20 feet away, beside a protruding slope, the conversation between two people attracted Zhang Xiaohua's attention. Little 7. Can you still walk? A woman's voice asked. Sigh, I'll just have to. Qilian, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come to join in the fun. Little 7's voice was weak. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 1167. It's okay, Xiaoqi. As long as we are still alive, we can still live in the future. Our Huanfeng Mountain Villa will have a chance to make a comeback. The woman called Qilian said softly. You are the best, Qilian. Xiaoqi was touched and said softly. Actually, last night, I don't know what happened. I didn't plan to go forward, but it felt strange. Yes, it's not just you. I felt the same. It was as if all the blood in my body was stirred up and rushed to my head. I didn't think about the consequences at all, and didn't think about whether I had the strength or not. I just rushed forward. And there were a lot of people rushing forward from behind. We had no choice but to go, Xiaoqi said with lingering fear. The key was later. I don't know what happened. I wanted to squeeze through the crowd and saw someone blocking me. I wanted to stab that person to death with my sword. Don't say any more. Qilian seemed to be very scared. Her voice was trembling as she said, talking about last night. I'm scared. I seem to have killed 2 people too. I killed even more. Xiaoqi hesitated. But it was very chaotic at that time. Who knows who they were? Maybe at this time, Master and Senior Brother haven't come back yet. Maybe, Qilian said sadly. How about? Xiaoqi, we should go first. It wasn't easy for us to run to the outermost area. Let's take advantage of the fact that there are fewer people. To save our lives first. But, Qilian, it wasn't easy for us to get here. And that Immortal's mansion is about to come out. If we have the fate of immortals, wouldn't we be able to reach the heavens in one step? Xiaoqi said hesitantly, but there was no hesitation in her voice. Xiaoqi, your legs are already like this, you still think about that illusory immortal's mansion? Qilian said angrily. Can you fight against the Dalan Temple, Fragrance Cult and between the clouds and the water? You saw it yourself last night. The people flying in the sky were all disciples of these 3 sections. They are all immortals. Even Dragon God Sect's number 1 person, Di Shirtian, died in their hands. You, Little 7, do you think you can compare to Di Shirtian? Sakura is dead? How is that possible? Zhang Xiaohua, who was eavesdropping on their conversation, was stunned. Meng, is she here too? Qilian, if it was before, you could say that the immortal mansion was illusory, but look at the sky above Yao Mountain. It's an immortal mansion right in front of us. Furthermore, the immortal mansion should only be occupied by the virtuous. Why did the Dragon God Sect return in defeat? That means they have no morals. I know that I don't have much innocent blood on my hands. This immortal mansion. I might still have a chance. But Qi Lian still wanted to persuade him. Xiao Qi scolded. Qi Lian, don't say but anymore. You and I were able to survive last night, which is the most powerful evidence that we have the opportunity to seize the immortal mansion. If I don't stay, wouldn't I be letting down last night's battle? Qi Lian didn't say anything. After a long while, she faintly said, Little Seven, this concubine has given you everything in hopes that we can grow old together. If you insist on staying, this concubine will accompany you. Sister Lian, don't worry. I have confidence. I am definitely the master of the immortal mansion. I will definitely lead you into the immortal mansion and announce to the world that you are the mistress of the immortal mansion. My Huanfeng villa will be in this immortal mansion from now on, Little Seven, as long as you are willing. Even if it's a broken cave, I will follow you. Qi Lian's side. Behind them, Zhang Xiaohua was standing. Her gaze was extremely complicated as she looked at this pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks. Her heart was filled with endless emotions. She really couldn't think of what confidence Little Seven had to say that she was the master of the immortal mansion. Even Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to be so arrogant. She only wanted to play the side drum and see what benefits there were. The ignorant are fearless. Zhang Xiaohua looked around. Around her, there were people with determined faces. Presumably, everyone had the same thought in their hearts. Only they were the destined person. Everything was arranged for them. Forget it. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Xiao Qi, whose leg was injured, and the beautiful young woman beside him, whose eyes were filled with love. He sighed and waved his hand, sealing their major pressure points. He thought to himself, with your martial arts skills, you won't be able to defeat me. You can't even compare to the elite disciples of the Misty Mountain Villa. You still dare to come to Yao Mountain to seize the immortal mansion? Seeing that Qi Lian is so infatuated, you two should sleep here for 2 days. If after 2 days, this immortal mansion still doesn't belong to someone, then you may really have some immortal fate. After dealing with this pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks in the Huanfeng Villa, Zhang Xiaohua didn't have the heart to care about anything else. She looked up at the sky and above Yao Mountain in the distance. A huge palace surrounded by immortal clouds had already appeared in the void. The style of the palace was extremely simple. It looked like an inexplicable aura was directly reflected in one's heart through the naked eye, and a sense of danger arose spontaneously from the bottom of Zhang Xiaohua's heart. This Zhang Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly. She thought to herself, Immortal Mansion should be a place where immortals live. Even if there are some restrictions in the cave, it shouldn't be so dangerous. My intuition has always been sensitive. I'm afraid that this immortal mansion has something strange. Oh right, according to what Little Seven and Qi Lian said, last night, there was a flash of red light that confused everyone's minds. My goodness, what kind of immortal mansion is this? Just as he was thinking, a series of crackling sounds rang out. The immortal residence that looked like it had pierced through the sky above Yao Mountain was now flashing with endless lightning from the parts that had already been exposed. There was also a lot of lightning lingering around the lightning, like a bunch of exploding fireworks. It was quite dazzling. In just a moment, a hurricane blew past. An incomparably ancient aura was emitted from the air and directly penetrated into everyone's hearts. Zhang Xiaohua was even more so. She raised her head in astonishment. The immortal mansion in the sky was now different from before. Although most of its outline had been revealed, they could only see the vague outline and the style of the palace. If they looked closely, they couldn't see it. It was as if there was an egg-white membrane between the palace and Yao Mountain. It couldn't be seen through. At this moment, the lightning was like a pair of scissors that cut through the membrane. Or perhaps it was the sharp corner of the palace that pierced through the membrane between the void and the mortal world. More than half of the palace was finally clear. At the same time as the palace, the qi of heaven and earth came out like a flood. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to release his divine sense. When he felt a fresh gust of wind blow in from the sky, his divine sense already saw the surging qi of heaven and earth like waves crashing against the shore, drowning his entire body. Bliss, incomparable bliss. Zhang Xiaohua never thought that there would be a day when he would be drowned by qi of heaven and earth. Very naturally, Zhang Xiaohua greedily breathed in through his nose and mouth. The Carefree Heart Sutra instantly activated, and the fresh qi of heaven and earth was like a rush of enlightenment, entering Zhang Xiaohua's pores. However, after a while, the qi of heaven and earth gradually thinned out, like a stream flowing into the sea, very quickly being diluted. Sigh, when will I be able to enjoy the immortal Tao to my heart's content? Zhang Xiaohua thought as he looked at the palace that had already been revealed. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was burning even more fervently. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at the sky. He saw that the palace was made of an unknown material. It was light red all over, and the style of the palace was something Zhang Xiaohua had never seen before. The round roof was like a semicircular eggshell. However, on this eggshell, there were all sorts of strange decorations. These decorations were very strange. Some looked like earthworms, some looked like turtles, and some looked like little birds. In short, they covered the eggshell. Under the flowing light, it felt as if these decorations were about to move, almost as if they were alive. What? In ancient times, immortals lived in bird nests like this? Looking at this shape, Zhang Xiaohua immediately thought of the bird nests he dug out from the trees outside the Guozhuang house when he was young. It was an inverted bird's nest. The buzzing sound in the sky had stopped since dawn, but at this moment, it seemed to have started again. Not knowing whether it was in the ears or in the heart, Zhang Xiaohua felt as if her entire heart was about to jump out of her stomach. Suddenly, there was a loud whong. It was like the sound of a millstone being moved in the countryside magnified 10,000 times. The sound was so loud that it seemed like it was going to crush Zhang Xiaohua's organs into powder. However, just as Zhang Xiaohua was about to cover her ears, the sound suddenly stopped. In an instant, the entire world was silent. Not even a trace of sound could be heard. The entire Yao Mountain also froze. Everyone was stunned on the spot. After a moment, someone moved, and the entire Yao Mountain seemed to come to life. Everyone seemed to have come to life, and was about to move. The sound reverberated through the world, piercing through the sky. Around Yao Mountain, the clouds that had been leisurely just a moment ago were instantly shattered. At this moment, the palace that looked like a bird's nest suddenly emitted a blood-red brilliance, as if a lively heart was beating. The blood-red brilliance seemed to swell as if it was breathing. That brilliance was like a spreading ray of light, spreading in all directions wave by wave. He did not know how the others were feeling, but at that moment, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a blood-red vat. Even his breathing became difficult. Just as he was about to circulate his heart technique, a divine sense that was as sturdy as a rock, as vast as the primordial, as majestic as a mountain, as vast as the sea, and as irresistible as the heavens and earth spread out from within the palace. It was as if a god was looking down on all living beings from within the palace. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.